Warning: the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers and/or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman featuring Bones. Catch us on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, Stream, and everywhere else you catch your podcasts. And of course, WLFE-DB.com. Now, from the backwoods of southeast Arkansas, right beside the Bayou Bartholomew, the longest bayou on the planet, broadcasting from downtown metropolitan Cane Creek Township, here is your host, Len Dorman.
Morning, good evening, whatever time of day you is you're watching this show. This is a live show. It is about 10 o'clock. I'm on Central Time. The Phoenix Jansen, though, she's on Mountain Time, so it's 9 p.m. Of course, on the East Coast, it's 11. It's a little late for y'all. Be careful in South Carolina. You've got a Category 1 that is aiming right at the middle of your state. So we are both concerned about the people in Florida. They have lived through Hurricane Hell as a Category 4 across their state. The eye left the state this morning, or late this morning, early this afternoon, and within 2 hours went from tropical storm status to Category 1, and strengthening in the Atlantic as we speak, and aiming towards South Carolina. So y'all be careful over in South Carolina. Hunker down. If you want to ride it out, my advice would be to leave, especially if you're in a low-lying area. Get the hell out. Florida, you know what? A lot of people in Florida know. I've lived in Florida for a bit. You know how I feel about hurricanes. Category 1, if you're on highland and willing to do without power for a week or two, you can ride it out. Category 2, you might want to walk away. Category 3, you might want to jog away. Category 4, you run. Category 5, you do like a Burt Reynolds did in his famous movie when he went and got the beer from drove through Arkansas. Says, I need a car. I need a fast car. Because you don't even want to run from a Category 5. And Ian was almost like about 2-3 miles an hour being a Cat 5. And those, you take a very fast car away from. Get you a sports car and put the pedal to the metal and go. All right. As advertised, we're going to bring in Phoenix Jansen right now.
Hello,
Phoenix.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me tonight. I'm very excited to talk about some of these upcoming epic events that's coming up very, very soon. And let's pray for all of those that's being affected by this storm. I know that the people in Florida, I have friends there and they're suffering terribly. So one friend that I know hasn't had power for 2 days, and that's in the central part of Florida. So yeah, let's pray for all of these people that's being affected at this time. Again, Lynn, thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it so much. And to be able to talk about the events that's going to be coming up. We're going to start with that. Would you like to start with that today?
I'm fixing to throw one up. We're going to start top to bottom, which is the second one I showed you outside of the one advertising the show, which is this one. This is your beautiful pictures that you sent us.
Okay.
And you know that's going to be our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That was on Facebook. Now that we go to the next one, and we're going to talk about the RIP Wraith Chasers.
Yes, the RIP is research and investigation of paranormal. The founder is Greg Stevens, and they do this charitable event with the Wraith Chasers. I think is going to be there. I know is going to be there, and it's going to be held on October the 22nd in Granbury, Texas. The people, the team. The RIP team worked very hard to make this happen. It's going to be an epic event. It's the very first time that the Granbury Courthouse has been investigated. I believe that building is 132 years old, and don't quote me on that, but I think I'm pretty close. But the most beautiful building, the first time I ever went to Granbury, I saw this building and I was like, wow, the architecture is breathtaking. And I found out later that it had never been investigated. So the team for research and investigation of the paranormal, RIP, actually went to great lengths to make sure that this happened. And they're going to be doing that on October the 22nd, for the very first time it's ever been investigated.
Wow.
So, yeah. So a lot of history. I believe they're going to get, and this is my personal belief, they're going to get a lot of activity because, again, it's never been investigated. And I'm sure there's a lot of spirit there, a lot of things that needs to be said, and just see who's going to pop up. There's been a lot of people pass through that building over 100 years. So if you have not ever seen the building, you need to look it up because it speaks spirit. It just speaks paranormal. So like I said, I think we put up there where you can purchase the link where you can purchase tickets. I know the tickets are going fast, so please keep that in mind. I know you're going to have the RIP founder, Greg Stevens, on your show on, I think, the 13th of October, and he'll be able to talk a lot more about the history of that building.
Yeah, we'll be covering that when he is on the show next month, about week 10 days before the actual event. So
Yes.
we're gonna be hitting this hard and heavy, and I'm gonna be asking him some pertinent questions about the location and what he expects to do there. So we'll talk about that as long as he wants to talk about it.
Sounds great. I'm sure he'll be looking forward to that. I believe our next
the money here goes to a good source too, doesn't it? I mean, organization benefiting the Reboot Recovery Veteran Suicide Awareness.
That is absolutely correct. And I think that's an amazing thing. He does a lot of work in that arena, and I'm sure he can tell you a lot more about it than I can because I don't know that much. But I do know that he does a lot of charitable work with veterans. And I think that's
that's really cool. The veterans deserve this. They deserve better treatment than our government gets them, and we need to do everything we can for them.
Absolutely. That is absolutely correct.
All right, the next one. Let's go to the Gypsy Fair next.
Okay, Holistic Gypsy Soul Fair. Absolutely. I actually read there as a reader, and I'm also going to be doing Q&A, all things paranormal, Saturday and Sunday. The event is October the 29th and 30th, which is Saturday and Sunday. The doors open at 10 both days, and they close at 5. Beautiful fair. I mean, this Shana Tibbett puts on the most beautiful fair I think I've ever seen, and it's run so well, and great readers. Vendors there are amazing. You won't be disappointed with this event. It's just absolutely amazing. This is going to be the second time this year that we've held that fair in Frisco, and
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to it. And like I said, there's wonderful readers there. I'll be reading as well. But I think it's you will not be disappointed. If you have never been to the Holistic Gypsy Soul Fair in Frisco, you don't want to miss it. We're going to have like a little Halloween theme, and most of I don't know how many people's going to be dressed up for Halloween, but we're going to put a Halloween theme with it, and a lot of us will be costumed for Halloween.
Oh, cool! That sounds like fun.
And like I said, I'll be doing a Q&A there Saturday and Sunday on all things paranormal.
Okay. Where is Frisco, Texas?
Frisco is just right outside of McKinney off the 380. It's kind of between McKinney, Plano, right off the 75. You hit the 380 and you go straight down and you hit Frisco. This is going to be held on the Plano side of Frisco at Convention Center, the Frisco Convention Center.
Okay. If people are looking that up, is it in West Texas, Central, Eastern? Where in Texas is it?
Well, it would be the 75 you would take from Allen and Plano, you would take the 75 north, like you were heading down the 75 to Oklahoma, and then you'd hit the 380. I don't really know. I can't really answer that question. I just know that I put my GPS and I go.
Okay. I think that's Central Texas, though.
I
Not
think
Western
so.
Texas, because if you go straight north, you're not going to hit Oklahoma in Central Texas.
No,
So I think
right.
that's more toward the east.
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay. So it's not that terribly far from me. I just wish I could go, but right now, the wife is still recovering from back surgery. So it's just a bad time for me to travel.
I'm very sorry about that. I'm glad she is doing well though. But you and I talked last year, the Holistic Gypsy Soul Fair also does Hot Springs, Arkansas,
Yes.
Fort Smith, Arkansas, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and several others. Those are the ones that I attend, but they're all over the place and amazing.
Next year, I'm really hoping that we can attend the one in the Hot Springs.
Me too. I hope you will as well. I would love that. I would have loved that last year. I know your wife had just had her surgery.
Yes.
When I was there, but you and I actually talked about Al Capone. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And
Yes,
I was like, oh, yeah. So we got to do that. We've got to go to Hot Springs and check that out.
All right. The next event.
History, Haunts, and Legends in Jefferson, Texas. Amazing. I've gone the last 3 years in a row, maybe 4. I have not missed it. It's beautiful. First of all, Jefferson, Texas is one of the most amazing towns I've ever seen. Very old town. And when you pull into Jefferson, Texas, it's like being in a world all your own. It's like you step into a wonderland. It's beautiful. But the History, Haunts, and Legends is everyone goes around and investigates all the plantation homes, the beautiful homes there. The old mill, they investigate that. There's a huge investigation on the November 5th. And you can get the tickets by calling. You'll have to call that number that you have there in order to purchase your tickets. And they're going
That's
fast.
903-601-3375.
Yes, 903-601-3375, Jefferson, Texas. You won't be disappointed in this place. It's just beautiful. The food is great. So many wonderful places to eat. I'll name a couple if it's okay with you.
Go right ahead.
The Hayward House. The Hayward House is magnificent. If you want a luxurious time, quiet, great food, great drinks, the Hayward House. Another one that I happen to enjoy a lot, it's more like a lunch place than it is to go and sit and have dinner and drinks. The Hayward House is more for that. But the Austin Street Bistro, the Austin Street Bistro is great food. It's gourmet food, and it's a little small place, but it is, again, you feel warm and welcome. Anywhere you go in Jefferson, Texas makes you warm and welcome. It's just amazing.
Oh, cool.
And the people are amazing. Oh, yeah. I could go on and on about the food places there, but I can't always remember the names of the restaurants. But those are my 2 favorites.
Okay. I appreciate all the information on these places.
Yeah, the B&Bs there are amazing. The Azaleas is one. That's my fave, and I always stay there.
Okay. All right. So you're going to look all this up on the internet in Jefferson, Texas.
That's right.
And of course, that's November 5th. I gather it's a one-day event. And for further information, just dial the number. I'm sure they'll give you all the information you want.
Yes, she will. It's Jody Breckenridge. And if you talk to Jody, she's an amazing person. She's the person in charge of putting these events on. Um, the HHL, as we call it, History, Haunts, and Legends. And she will be happy to help in any way, guide you to anything that you need help with once you get there. So absolutely, yes, Jody.
All right. Now, let's go ahead and talk about you.
Okay. Well, I wasn't gonna. Okay, we can do that.
Well, let's just give everybody a little background on you, where you're coming from, what you've done in the past, what you do now, and then we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. But I just want everybody to kind of get to know you before we get on some deep subjects, because you and I've previously talked, of course, and the things we talked about that we're going to talk about tonight are kind of deep subjects.
Absolutely.
I just want everybody to know a few things about you before we go off the deep end.
Okay, well, we can do that. I'm a psychic medium, and I've spent my entire life studying spirit. So who am I? I'm all about spirit. A deep, deep believer. And I was born psychic, and I don't really know any other way of life, but I got into the paranormal because when I was growing up, I had all these friends. I had spirit, and I really didn't have a lot of people to talk to about it. So as I grew and spirit put things in place for me, God put things in place for me to grow my abilities, I did just that. And I have a lot of alien civilization background as well. I work for some psychiatrists in Dallas that I help with some of the things that they don't have the answers to. I try to provide them with the answers that I receive, and it's wonderful, and it helps a lot of people, because there's people out there that they have these experiences and they really don't know. They don't want to tell anybody. They don't want to talk about it. They feel like that it's a bad thing. So I try to help and intervene in the direction that they've been contacted by whatever it is, spirit, ET, for a reason. So that's some of the things that I do. But paranormal is also a very deep love of mine, and the reason it is because I love spirit, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I don't like to talk about myself a whole lot. I'd much rather talk about spirit and guide people that don't have the answers in the paranormal, that has questions. I like to try to touch on topics that will help them grow and try to reach spirit on their own. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So today,
that's a great segue to where we're going.
Exactly. Today, you and I spoke a little bit about energy.
Yes.
And residual energy, spirit energy, and how do we know the difference? Well, we can get to that. One of the biggest things I wanted to talk to you about tonight, I wanted to bring this up because it's important to me, is that when we're in an investigation, we have residual energy and we have spirit energy, which is spirit still on the earth plane. And sometimes it's, like I said, it's hard to tell the difference. But one of the biggest things that I've been really noticing over the past couple years, when we ask a question, we're in a paranormal investigation, and we ask a question, and then someone else asks a question, and then someone else asks a question, and everybody's trying to get answers, of course. But as you and I both know, it takes a while for spirit to answer sometimes, most of the time. And so when you ask more than one question, I would say in probably a 1 to 2 minute intervals, you don't know whose question they're actually answering if you don't give them time to answer it, and then drop the question that was just asked. What is your name? and you don't get an answer, then you say, okay, I'm going to close that question and let's move on to the next question. That way, we know that that question has been closed. We're going to ask another question. So very, very, very important to me. And I was wondering today how you feel about that, because I know you've done an enormous amount of investigations, a lot more than I ever have. So you mentioned something to me today about when people watch, a lot of people get their information from watching ghost shows on TV. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. I do the same thing. We all have. But yes, they get their answer. They ask a lot of questions very quickly and they get answers. But you brought up a very important thing today, and I was hoping you could share that with us tonight.
Okay, sure. I'll tell a little bit about my background. Sure, I've never been on Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters or Ghost Brothers, but I have been on 2020, Snapped, True Crime, and Vengeance. So I know how the TV works. And I've seen interviews of me that took an hour and a half to put on video be chopped down to maybe 2 minutes of FaceTime in an hour show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens a lot. Most of these ghost shows, paranormal shows, they are at a location a minimum of 2 nights, sometimes a week. I'm friends with the Dr. Spencer. And of course, some people say, who is Dr. Spencer, including you? You're not familiar with Dr. Spencer. He's obviously a professor, not a medical doctor. He's a professor at Monticello College, south of here. He is a proud owner of the Allen House down in Monticello, which is one of the top 5 most haunted, privately owned houses in the United States. It's an incredibly haunted place. It's not the scary kind of haunts. Liddell Allen is one of the main spirits there. She was a suicide. Her son died at an early age and is 23, 24 years old. We call him Allen because she got a divorce from his father, and neither one of them wanted anything to do with his father. So we all just called him Allen, which is, of course, his mother's maiden name. And he answers to that. He's used to it. But yeah, that's where was I forgot where I was going with this, but that is a whole different story. But that's active. You go in there and there's active spirits in there, and you can communicate with them. The Liddell tires out pretty quickly, but it's a place you will get evidence, especially if you go in there nicely and contact Alan. There are residuals. You feel the energy.
Okay.
But go ahead.
So that's what I was going to ask. Residual, do you get any residual, or do you get mostly spirit energy and spirit replies, and do they come quickly? Because that's kind of where we're going with this is your experience in how quickly we get answers.
There you will get answers near immediately. I was up there several years ago on Halloween,
mm-hmm.
and they were running tours through. Liddell tires out very quickly with the tours. Alan, however, being much younger when he passed, is a little bit of a comedian. He worked for a newspaper in New York City, and so he doesn't mind people at all. And a tour walked through the room where I was investigating, and there was one gentleman wearing a baseball cap in the tour, about 10, 12 people. And I said, Alan, what is the name of the gentleman in the baseball cap? And then I just waited, like I'm not, just a complete hesitation. Mm-hmm. Within seconds, he said the man's name, which I did not know. I did not ask the gentleman's name before I asked that. But the guy turned around, looked at me, his mouth was wide open, and he ran. Because he knew that I did not know his name, because he had not seen me before then, and he'd only been in the room with me about 10 seconds when I asked that question. Allen immediately gave the answer. And
Wow.
that's one reason I like doing this kind of thing by myself. I can put the hesitation where it's needed. And where I was going with the Allen house, the Ghost Brothers, they had a show for a while, and they still got their second or third show is actually on the networks now.
Guys. I absolutely love those guys. Watch their show.
They're funny. They're fellow Georgians. They're hilarious. Their very first show was the Allen House. Okay. Episode 1, season 1 is the Allen House. Professor Spencer told me that they were there for either 4 or 5 days filming that 1 hour show, which of course is including commercials in the hour. So you're looking at less than 40 minutes of airtime for the show. And it took them 4 or 5 nights, practically a week, to film that 40 minutes.
And get answers.
And they can't do the okay, what, like I did. What is the gentleman wearing the baseball cap's name? They can't afford to show that dead air until there's an answer. Sometimes you don't get, Allen gave me the answer within seconds. Sometimes your answer doesn't come in seconds. Also, you never know how many spirits you're talking to. That time I knew I was only talking to one, Allen. But if you're in a location with multiple spirits, you may get multiple answers. So you don't need to go to question number 2 immediately, because you may get one answer in 10 or 15 seconds. You may get answer number 2 15, 20 seconds after that. You may get another answer 30 seconds after that. So you need to put a gap there and let them answer, because I've seen so many times people say, well, like I did, what's the name of the gentleman wearing the baseball cap? They wait a few seconds and said, what's the lady's name that's wearing the green coat or got the funny hat? And without giving the spirits an answer. They see this on TV because they can't have dead air on a TV show. You just can't sit there and let the guy standing there not say anything, waiting for an answer that may not come for 30, 40 seconds. You can't afford to waste 30 seconds of airtime waiting for an answer. So they edit it and edit that gap out where it's an automatic answer, and people come up thinking that it's an automatic answer within seconds, and you move on to the next question, like we are. We're sitting there talking, I talk, you talk, Bob, you go back and forth. It's not like that. TV shows make it look like that because you can't have dead air on a TV show.
Absolutely. And I just see it happen a lot. I do it myself, by the way. We all do. We all get excited.
We all do.
We move on to the next question. Yeah, absolutely. But I've noticed that when I have a couple of questions in mind, I go in and intention. Your intentions, the intentions that you set when you go into an investigation changes everything. Because don't think for 1 minute, and these are all my personal beliefs. So, I'm not putting this on saying that anyone else should be doing what I do. I'm not. It's just my personal experience and beliefs, is that when you go into an investigation and you enter into that room with certain intentions, they know this. Spirit knows this. It's like you walk into a room with a smile on your face, people look at you like you're happy. If you go in with a frown on your face, people look at you like, oh, they're not very happy. Well, Spirit does the same thing in my mind. And what I believe is they do the same thing. They know who you are. They know what you're there for. There's an exercise you can do about breathing. And they say that when you breathe out, Spirit can can read you. They can read who
Mhm.
you are and what you're about. I believe that. And so the questions that we ask should be obviously all about their environment, who they are, what do they want to talk about? Do they have a story? I get a lot of answers when I say, "Would you like to tell us your story?" And then I make a promise that if they tell me a story, something that I can relate to, I will see that their story gets told. I'm working on one right now from actually from the China Wall in Montana. I went there and I did an EVP session on spirit, and I did connect. And they gave me names, they gave me recommendations, and I believe that I was speaking with someone who actually worked on that wall as I call them slave workers, but that's not what you're supposed to call them. But they came over here from China and worked under very strict conditions to build the water dams that helped to discover the gold. And so this spirit actually spoke to me in what I believe was Chinese, and I've contacted someone who actually is trying to help me decipher what that is, what he was saying in another language, and the other things that he said to me in English. He said, "Investigate this." Well, I can't not. I can't not do it because he asked me to, and I said I would. So I do. I go up there a lot to the China Wall, and I spend time there, and I do a lot of research, and I've been doing that now almost a year
Wow.
on strictly the China Wall. Now, there's a lot of China Walls located because there's been a lot of gold mining over the years in Montana. But the China Wall that I speak of is the one that is up at Garnet Ghost Town. And so anyway, that's one thing that I've been doing. I don't walk away from that investigation and I never think about it again. It doesn't happen ever. I was on an investigation a few months ago, and I wasn't feeling well. And it took me a little time after I walked out of the house of this investigation to realize that a man had spoke to me. And he spoke to me about a pipe, wanting a pipe, and he spoke to me about a ring. He wanted to know where his ring was. So I've kind of put that out there with a couple of people to see if I could discover exactly why he was hunting a ring. I believe the house there had been a fire there, and this man, I believe, wore a ring. I have not been able to get a picture, but that's another thing that has stuck with me, and I don't ever forget him. Let's put it like that, because when spirit speaks, we should listen.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree.
Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that and putting that to everyone's mind, that when they ask a question, give it a little time, because it
Mm-hmm.
takes time. Sometimes more times than more, it takes more time than others for the spirit to get through, because it maybe it's really, really cold weather and the veil is thick or thin, whatever the case, cold, hot, whatever the case may be. I'm sure there's many, many reasons that it takes time for spirit to speak to us. So thank you for that. And the other thing I think we were going to talk about, that I thought you brought up an amazing fact, and that's residual energy. So I think
Okay.
we'll talk a little bit tonight about the difference between residual energy and spirit energy. But in the interim, you said to me earlier that over time, years, the residual energy dissipates in some cases.
Yes.
You want to talk
And
about that?
what we talked about, I did not show you. I will do so now.
Oh, you got it.
This is a picture
Okay.
of where John Dillinger fell and died. Both these buildings have been renovated inside thoroughly since he was killed. He fell. You see the light reflecting off the wall and kind of where windows are reflecting, the little squares.
Yes.
If you look down on the pavement, you'll see some pipes kind of going down to the ground and a couple of dark spots on the pavement. That's where he fell. That's where he fell and died. This alley has been, of course, repaved probably a couple of times since then. Some of this brick wall has been replaced. This whole white wall is new. That's kind of a facade that's up on top of the old wall. These windows are all new. So his spirit, for years afterward, people could see him take a couple of fast steps and fall in that alleyway, especially at the night. But some of them at the right time. He was almost there nightly for a while. After that, he started fading, and it was maybe once a month he would come through, and then it was on the anniversary of the night he got killed, and you'd see a flash of a figure stagger and fall right there, and then it would fade away. There has not been a sighting that I have heard of in a couple of decades, which I think is most of the stuff that was holding the original energy is either covered up, or been torn out and moved. The buildings have been renovated, so anything holding the original energy, a lot of it is gone. So yeah, even though you got the same area, the same geographic location, most of the stuff holding the energy has gone, and the energy, I believe, has faded away to next to nothing. And you don't feel anything in that alley anymore. It's just a geographic location where an FBI killing occurred.
So the residual energy was created by a very traumatic experience and has probably now been replaced and gone because of the renovation. That's very, 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 very interesting. So you believe that versus him being spirit, it was the trauma that created the event, the event that happened all those years. It was residual energy.
Yes, it was, because nobody that I have ever seen in my research has said that there was an interaction.
Okay, there you go.
They would try, but there was never, ever any reaction. And
they saw it.
So which tells me that that's residual. Now, if you want to get interactive with John Dillinger, sometimes, I don't have a picture of it, but the jail that he escaped from shortly before he was killed in Indiana, that it's investigated. It is a haunted location. So look up the John Dillinger jail. I forget the proper name of the jail right now, but you can look that up and visit that jail if you want to communicate with John Dillinger. Part of him is still there, and you can go a little bit interactive. He's not that talkative, but people have contacted Dillinger there before. But at that alley location, to my knowledge, nobody's ever contacted him and gotten an answer. It was always residual, and that's all but faded away. And this picture was taken, by the way, before a Richard Crowe event on the anniversary of John Dillinger being killed. Richard Crowe, the late Richard Crowe, who died by the way, he was killed in July, very, very shortly after my birthday, July 3rd, the 5th or 6th or something like that. Anyway, I'm not a John Dillinger expert. I forget the dates. So much stuff to remember. Anyway.
Oh, yes.
Richard Crowe died in June the next year, but he did have his last event, and I was there helping him out a little bit. So I was blessed working with the great Richard Crowe, which is the godfather of all paranormal in Chicago, Illinois. And he did an event where we would meet in front of the Biograph Theater. At the time, John Dillinger walked out of the theater with the famous Lady in Red, which I give you a piece of trivia. She was not dressed in red. I mean, there in the 1920s, there was, half the women there were wearing red. That was a popular color back then. So it was not the Lady in Red. It's the neon lights under the marquee at the Biograph that made her dress look red.
Interesting.
She specifically said, I will be in an orange dress, a bright orange dress. The neon turned it to where it looked red. And Richard Crowe would have the people that paid for the event meet in front of the Biograph. When he walked out, we walked down the alley like we were in a crowd, which John Dillinger was, toward the alleyway with the correct timing, and then get to the alley at the exact second he was shot by the FBI and dropped dead. And Richard would pour a beer on the spot. That photo you just saw was taken several hours, obviously it was daytime, before the event. And I investigated that alley before his event, and then to see if energy would build up after the event.
Okay.
That night. So that was, I investigated on each side of Richard Crowe's event. And by the way, he had a lady in red contest. You got to say lady in red, because you say lady in orange, people say, huh? Well, one lady, and I think she did win the contest, did show up in an orange dress, knowing that piece of trivia I just put out, instead of red. Of course, Richard was carrying a fake Tommy gun around at the time. And actually, it's a disabled Tommy gun. It's got all the pins pulled out of it. But if you take it to a gunsmith, he can make it a fully operational Tommy gun if you wanted to pay for it. And it was a fun event. They had several contests inside the bar we met in across the street. It was very fun, and I was very honored to be at his last event at that date.
That's really, really, really a good story. So residual energy with renovations and the passing of time and the removal of the original structures can dissipate, is what you're saying. And spirit energy can last for as long as the spirit decides to stay. And I believe you brought up a couple of things about staging the event for the era that you're trying to recreate or try to reach, or trying to reach the spirit in that era. I believe, and I've had I've had good experiences with this. If you're trying to reach spirit, I believe that setting up the event with music for the time frame that you're trying to locate, for the stories that you're trying to get information on, music, flowers, pictures, those kind of things, I believe is very important to investigations as well. Setting up staging the event to make the spirit comfortable and make the spirit want to talk. Yes. What is your opinion of that?
Well, let me tell you what I did. Instead of giving you my opinion, I will tell you what I actually did. Excellent. There was an event several years ago in the Chicago area. Most people do not know that this location even exists. It's called Camp Douglas. And you can look that up on the internet. They do have an organization, the Camp Douglas Restoration Society. It is where the main location has been excavated by a couple of universities in the Chicago area to find artifacts. It was originally 80 acres. A lot of that is grown up. When I'm not talking about grown up, I'm not talking about woods. We're talking about this inside the city limits of Chicago, Illinois, home of 3 million people. And this is just north of Soldier Field, where the Chicago Bears play. In fact, you can see the stadium from there. But back in 1861, it was south of Chicago, outside the city limits. It was created the land was donated by Stephen Douglas, the short man who fought Lincoln. Well, as far as election, lost to Lincoln, and debated Lincoln several times. Running for president. Stephen Douglas was from Chicago. He owned this land. And after he lost the presidential election to Lincoln, of course, South Carolina succeeded. And Lincoln said, okay, we're going to war. We cannot have a state or states leave the Union. So Stephen Douglas said, okay, we can't have this, agreed with Lincoln, and donated some land, donated 80 acres of his private residence area to the federal government to open up a boot camp for people recruited, i.e. drafted, out of Chicago, which was even back in 1861 was a fairly major city. So a lot of soldiers were recruited, drafted, whatever you want to call it, and sent to Camp Douglas for boot camp, first sent to the front lines. Well, this area was soft. It froze. It had water in it if it rained, but they kept using it as a boot camp. Well, after a couple of battles, they took some Confederate prisoners, and they hadn't thought about this. I said, okay, where do we put these people? Well, we have 80 acres here. We can run a third of it, a quarter of it for a boot camp. And we put most of the people through here anyway, so we're not training that many people. Let's just put a wall up and hold the prisoners here. So they said, okay. This main location is where the headquarters is Lake Meadows Park. It's a public park in Chicago. And I negotiated with the city of Chicago for 2 years to get permission to do an all-night investigation here. So what I did, a gentleman by the name of George Levy, that's the author's name, wrote a book, To Die in Chicago. And last I heard, this book was still available on Amazon in hardback cover. To Die in Chicago by George Levy. It's all it talks about. It doesn't talk about the war. It talks about the 4 years that Camp Douglas existed, breaks it down into 4 sections by commander, not by date, but by commander. He had 4 commanders, so he broke it down into 4 sections. This commander started on this date, and here's what happened while he was commander. And it broke it down succinctly with all the information he could find, letters, records, etc., from that era. So what I did, you mentioned music. I brought that in. I brought in a tent, and George Levy brought a screen and did a slideshow and presentation on site. He's an attorney in Chicago, older man at the time. And it almost creeped him out. He said, I have never done a slideshow and a presentation outside. And I sure have never even considered doing a presentation on the Camp Douglas site. So here we are. And I had to charge to get my money back from the city for the event, but I didn't charge anything for the slideshow. So people who were helping me or people local, anybody who wanted to show up came to the site and saw George Levy talk about the location and the history and saying the things that happened at Camp Douglas. So how big a trigger object do you want? other than having somebody who wrote a book about it, doing a
Yeah,
slideshow and presentation on site. Then
absolutely.
I built what I call a replica mule. And you have not read the book. Most people watching this have not read the book. A mule was a punishment at Camp Douglas. It was basically a sawhorse, but a big one. Everybody's used sawhorses if they've built anything in their house or watched a carpenter build anything. They put the wood on a sawhorse so they don't have to lean on the ground to cut it. Use a sawhorse. We've used them for 300-400 years.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a bigger sawhorse. This is a sawhorse that's where the board, instead of being 2.5, 3 feet off the ground, is more like 6 feet off the ground. And made of unmilled wood, which is not the smooth 2x4s you get now at your hardware store. This is one that hasn't been milled yet. It's just a rough hewn 2x4 with splinters and rough spots.
Mm-hmm.
What they would do for punishment is make the person sit on that naked. Where all this rough hewn wood, splinters, rough pieces, would be all over their personal bits and up the crack of their fannies and make them sit there all day.
Wow.
Winter and summer.
I bet they learned to sit real still.
Yes. And I built a replica about the size of a kind of a high sawhorse, and brought it to the camp location and sit it there. I had recorded several popular songs from the early 1860s, during the war. I had it all on my phone. Set my phone on top of the sawhorse and started playing that music. And yes, we got results. Dale Kazmarek, who will be my guest next week, by the way, on the first one in October, he was there. He heard from George Levy's presentation the name of the unit who did the guard duty. He got a voice, a male voice. He said, what was the name? What was the number of your unit? And he had a voice come on there and tell him the name of the unit that matched the unit number that he'd heard a couple of hours earlier in George Levy's presentation.
Wow. Yeah. It's all about and set up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was operating separately in a different location than Dale. And what we got where I was a female voice. Now, if you hadn't read the book, there were several females there. The commander usually had his wife there. One of them had his young daughter there, believe it or not. But the first 2 years, the commanders allowed a Sutter store. If you don't know what a Sutter store is, it's a small store that you could buy about anything the store person could bring in. In season, it'd be vegetables, fruit, whatever they could buy in the city of Chicago. They would come in, put it on the counter or whatever, put it in a box or a bag, and resell it, of course, at a profit. They're in the prison camp. And this one woman ran it for about 2.5 years until the new commander ran her out. He got her out for a while. She went to court. She got back in there. And then the commander went around the law and said, you can't come in here anymore, because he wanted to punish the prisoners. Okay? And he did not like the fact she was selling fresh vegetables and fruit to the prisoners. But we got her talking about various subjects, talking about selling stuff and being in the store, and she felt sorry for the prisoners. Statements like that. I forget everything that she recorded that we caught, but that's what you had to read the book to realize why are we getting a female voice here, and it was the woman who ran the Sutter store. We found that
Yeah.
out because she said Sutter, and people were looking at me and said, what is Sutter? Is that did she say stutter? I said, no, that was Sutter. And I said, Sutter store? And she said, yes.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Knowing your history before you go into a location, any location, is very important. You'll get so much better answers from your questions, and you can ask so much better questions. We do that a lot. Kellen Buckley.
Yes.
Well, Justin Sutter was in the military, and we some of the questions that he comes up with and we get answers from is just amazing because he knows so much about the military. Um, I can't remember what it was called. It was an abbreviation of something. One night, he and I was investigating at Fort Walters, and he asked this question, and we were hearing something strange. And he was telling me the story of back in the day of this and that with history of the military, and gave us an answer. We got several answers that night just off of the questions that he was able to ask about the military. We got great answers. So yeah, knowing your history of a location and what happened there, and like you say, the books has been written on them, and what happened during the era that building was active with people, you'll get so much better answers. Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely.
Yes. Study your history, study your background, do your research. I brought up Dale Kazmarek. He's going to be my guest next week. You may not know his name. You may or may not. We haven't talked about him. But if you look up on Google, the Google machine, some people call it, look up ghost photo, especially if you put it in Chicago, you will come up with a famous ghost picture that Ghost Adventures did show. And they talked about the lady who took it, Judy Huff, of the white lady of Bachelor's Grove sitting on the stone. If you look it up, you can find that.
I think I've heard about that.
It was taken in, I think, 1992. Judy Huff was using a 35 mil camera, no digitals back then, and she was using very fast infrared film. She just put the camera to her face and shot a photo from this of the cemetery. And this was in the background. She did not see it till she looked at it at home and saw that she had a figure, blew it up, and that's the photo that everybody knows now, the lady on the stone.
I'll look that up. I something, my mind very vaguely, I believe I've crossed that path somewhere. But I'll look that up again. I will.
Okay. And Dale said, okay, this could be a whole bunch of people, because they were shocked about getting the photo. They did check out the negative before. Two different people checked the negative out and said this negative has not been altered. Ghost Adventures, Zach Bagans, brought Judy out to Vegas to his museum studio. You know, he was doing that studio work for a while. For a show. She was on that show. And he sent to his experts out in Vegas the negative from that picture. And they told him flat out, this negative has not been altered. But in research, it took me a couple of years to figure this out. This photo right here matches the lady on the stone. Now, the lady on the stone is a profile shot. But if you look at it side by side carefully, it's the same dress. Sure, it's translucent in the ghost photo, but you can see it's a dress with polka dots on it, like this.
Wow.
This is John Humphrey and Amelia Humphrey, his wife. This is their wedding picture. The reason it looks kind of old and crusty, it was taken in 1863. So yes, this photo is kind of old and crusty. Not allowed to touch the real photo, but this is a photo of the real photo.
Okay.
Taken in 1863. It matches the same hairstyle. The profile matches this face, and the dress exactly matches that from the lady on the stone that was taken in 1992. And why would this lady be in an abandoned cemetery in 1992 when she's not even buried there? She's buried in Orland Park Cemetery with her husband and the children who died locally. Well, they had some marital issues. When they got married, John ran for public office. Theirs was a marriage of convenience, not love.
Mm-hmm.
Both families owned the Patricks. The Amelia Patrick's her maiden name. Owned property. The Humphreys owned property. So of course they married her off to a Humphrey, being also a family of money. They had a child immediately, Libby May Humphrey. John Humphrey ran for office, got the state. He was a state senator, not a federal senator, but a state senator in Cook County, and was the most powerful man outside in Cook County, which is the county Chicago's in. He was the most powerful man in Cook County outside the city of Chicago for several decades. Of course, he ran his office out of his home. He had a secretary. Of course, you got to have a secretary when you're doing that kind of work. And he was having an affair with his secretary from day one. When Amelia died in 1881, 6 months after his first wife died, he married the secretary. She bore him several children. In Orland Park, he is buried in the center. His first wife, Amelia, is buried on one side. His second wife, the secretary he's having an affair with for years, is buried on his other side. And the children who were buried locally from each one of them are buried the other side of the wife.
And she was in another cemetery.
She was in another cemetery sitting on a stone. Why? Well, I found this when I found the photo.
Oh my God.
She died at 11 months and 4 days old in 1865, buried at Bachelor's Grove. This is a piece of evidence that Zach Bagans did not find during their trip to Bachelor's Grove and their show at Bachelor's Grove. But the reason the lady was sitting on the stone, she had just popped in by portal to Bachelor's Grove to visit the grave of her firstborn child. This is a mother's love, not a haunting.
Wow.
And to have a lot of people can't dig this up now, mainly because I went in there, contacted Libby May, or she contacted me actually to start with. And
I believe in those things.
We talked. She followed me home once or twice, moved some stuff in the house. Amelia had to come get her out of our house 2 or 3 different times. One, my wife had to tell her, come get your child out of our house. And Amelia had to pop in real quick, grab her child, and leave. But I had, due to her following me home, she learned how to move. She learned how to talk, by the way. 11 months and 4 days don't talk. But she, over the years, well over 100 years, learned how to talk. She kind of had a baby voice, but she learned how to talk. And now she learned how to move. So I told Amelia before I left the Chicago area, I said, why do you want to hang around this old rundown cemetery and have your other kids? There's a couple other kids died at younger ages, are buried in Orland Park. They came to Baxter's Grove to play with their older sibling. And I said, why do you want your kids to come here? Go see the world. You never got to travel much in life. Travel in death. Go have fun. Go see Paris. Go see New York. The world has changed a lot since you were here. Go travel. Go see the world. See any place you want to. And now Libby May does not answer people in that cemetery. She's not there much. Amelia will only answer Dale Kazmarek when he goes in there. Because she is busy traveling. If he goes in there, he knows he can call her name a couple of times and she will answer him.
That's amazing.
And she's confirmed all this to him before I even told him what was going on. But nobody else that goes in that cemetery, people go in there and answer, well, this place isn't haunted. No, it's not. Basically, I cleared it out. Sorry about that, guys. That's on me. But I found out who it was and what it was haunting the cemetery. And I didn't clean them. I didn't ban them. I didn't sage them. I just said, go see the world. Go have fun. You deserve more than standing here in an abandoned cemetery with your child. Go. And she left. She took my advice.
Possibly.
And you can't get her anymore. And people go in there and say, there's nothing here. Mainly because during the daytime, there's not.
Absolutely. So a couple of things you touched on during that, and that's an amazing story of history. You touched on a couple of things. You touched on children, and you touched on and it just skipped my mind. So let's go. Oh, you touched on something following you home. So it's two things from the graveyard that I too am very familiar with. Not just a graveyard, but something can follow you home. A spirit can follow you home. Do you believe that, correct?
Yes. I had another spirit follow me home from there. And I had trouble wondering who it was. He was not very talkative. He didn't say anything. And he got to my house. We had a resident spirit. It was my wife and her mother were the second owners of the house. The first owners had sold them the house and moved up to Minnesota. They had both passed away at their retirement home in Minnesota, along with their son. He died at a young age, but he died about the same time his parents did, up in Minnesota. He had come back down to the house there in Chicago and was attached to, he was a painter. He was a little bit of an artist, amateur artist. And I was wondering what this was I was feeling. You're talking about feeling residual and active. He was attached to some of his artwork. And I said, what is here that he's attached to? It was just a pile of stuff that had been there since my wife and my mother-in-law had bought the house. There was some stuff in it. This was some stuff that was left over. And I found some of his paintings that were there. He was attached to those paintings. And he would sometimes come up and make himself known in the house. Well, this new spirit that followed me home, the two of them appeared together because, of course, one guy that was there was, of course, defending his turf, but found out who this other big spirit was. And the two of them disappeared, but they knew we were already broadcast that we were leaving. We were moving, selling the house. The two spirits disappeared. They just walked down the hallway and faded away in the upstairs living room. And we never heard another strange sound we couldn't explain in that house ever again till we moved.
So I believe that sometimes wandering spirits find a location that they're comfortable in, and they'll stay until something changes and they're no longer comfortable. I
Right.
believe one very strong definition of a wandering spirit. And they wander because they're looking for a place of comfort. And I believe
Right.
that.
And this was a slightly roaming spirit. The reason he couldn't say anything is because I saw his outline there in the cemetery and realized traffic had stopped on the road. There's a highway there, 4-lane highway, running close to the cemetery, and I could see the traffic from there. And all of a sudden, there was no traffic noise. And I wondered, what in the world is going on? And I started looking at it, and I sat there for about 30, 40 minutes. When a car goes by every 10 to 15 seconds at a minimum on a slow day,
Yeah.
there was nothing going on. I said, okay, I got to go. And they kind of started creeping me out. And I saw an outline of a person, and several spirits that hung around there in the cemetery were sitting there talking, and they got quiet. And I said, is there a spirit here that's not supposed to be here? And got yes, a chorus of yeses, several yeses. And I just looked at the image I could see in the air, and I said, you know, I can see you, right? And it kind of took a step toward me. I said, no. Right there. I said, who are you? And they couldn't say anything. They just could not talk. I said, okay, you're welcome here to visit, but you don't belong here. The other spirits don't belong here, and they will tell you that. Well, he followed me home, and he took off with our household spirit. Come to find out, the reason all the traffic was stopped is because a half mile up the road was the first intersection you run into on that highway from the cemetery. And you go the other way, about a half mile away, is the next intersection that way.
Crossroads.
That's just a huge block. It's forest preserve from the county. If you don't know what forest preserve is, basically it's forested area that's kept up by Cook County for trees, so people can do nature hiking and things like this. There's paths through there. Kind of used as a giant park. And it's about a half mile. It's not 3/4 of a mile. It's half mile or less each way from the cemetery till you get to the first intersection. The one toward Orland Park, there's traffic light there. There was a motorcycle rider who was going through the green light. Somebody was coming up to that red light, and I don't know what was wrong with them. They did not see the red light. They hit the motorcycle broadside at high speed. And of course, you know how motorcycles ride. If you're hit even at 20, 30 miles an hour, it's going to hurt. This guy was going 70 or more. So, of course, instantly killed the driver, the rider of the motorcycle. His name was Roach, R.I.P. Roach. This was Roach that followed me to my house. And he had just been killed when he appeared in the cemetery. He hadn't learned how to speak yet. He didn't know where he was. He wasn't quite sure he was dead or what was going on. And I was the first person he saw away from the car wreck. He wanted to get away from the car wreck. And I was the first living person that he saw because I was in the cemetery by myself. The spirits around were comforting. They weren't hostile, but he saw people like him that were there. And there I was talking to the spirits and just kind of welcomed him into the conversation.
And he followed you home.
And he followed me home and took off with our household spirit. And hopefully they're still riding around the country, seeing the world.
You can absolutely have a spirit follow you home from a graveyard. Is I've heard many stories. I have never had anything follow me home from the graveyard. But I do a closure when I leave. But one night I was at the Nazareth. Well, the first time I ever went to the Nazareth in Mineral Wells, Texas. This is a really, really amazing story. I went there, and I grew up wanting to be a nun. I had a lot of religious questions, and I just thought I should be a nun. And I spent my whole life thinking that I should grow up and be a nun. But that never happened, and I'm glad, because I had beautiful children, and I enjoy them very much, and I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for all of my abilities that God has given me, and all the things that He's blessed me with. But nuns are very amazing to me, and I feel very close. I don't know if you've ever went anywhere where there was some nuns. Like, I was in a restaurant a couple of years ago, and nuns came there, and all I wanted to do was just say hello and buy their lunch. I mean, it was just, oh, I was so taken and so filled with spirit when I was near them. But anyway, back to the story. I was at the Nazareth Hospital in Mineral Wells, Texas. As you know, is a very haunted location, which is now closed. But I've investigated it many times. The first time I ever went there, I walked in, and there's a bench on the left as you walk into what they call the nurses station. And I saw a nun in blue. She was in her outfit, and she was crying. I saw her. I mean, I saw her with my own two eyes. And I sat down beside her. Nobody was around. I sat down and asked her why she was crying. And she said she wanted to go home. Well, I never saw that nun. I never saw that that entity, that apparition again. Never did. And years later, after it closed down, I got the opportunity to go there once, and I went. And about 12 o'clock at night, I started feeling like somebody was following me. And I was a little bit disturbed, but not really. I could see their shoes. So I went upstairs on the 6th floor, and I sat down on a bench. When I sat down on that bench, I knew exactly what had happened. She attached to me. There was no question in my mind. Well, I was going through a very difficult situation at the time. Didn't see how it was going to have a resolution. And I went home. I knew this nun was with me. I knew you can feel it. I don't know if you've ever had an attachment, but you can feel it.
Another story, another time. So yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah, it's you don't ever forget it. That's for sure.
No.
And I knew what to do. I knew what I should do, but I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. So I went home. This hasn't been very long ago. And I said, I can't release this attachment. I can't do it. I can't send her back. And a few weeks went by, and my situation started to get much better. Much better, which I don't see any intervention of my help that I did to change the situation. And I believe she was sent to me to help my situation. Because when my situation got much better, she left. She was gone. I just woke up one morning and she was gone. And I think she came there for a reason. And I won't ever forget it. And I didn't try to do anything to say goodbye. I didn't ask where she went. I just knew it was time for her to go. And she went on her own with no help from me. And I'm so grateful that she was with me during this period, because I feel like that she was able to do things that I could not. And I believe that she was sent to me through God to give me the strength maybe that I needed. So you have to look at attachments in a lot of different ways, and why something visits you. Why does something choose you? Of course, I don't have those answers, but I'm very much aware nowadays. I'm very much aware when I run into any type of entity. I ask myself the question, okay, why is this entity here? Because you never know.
You never know.
You never know. No.
All right. Let's go ahead and do our. It's past halfway,
Yep.
so let's go ahead and I got to do some advertising.
Okay.
I have several things here. This show is okay. I can go ahead and delete this one because that one is gone. This one, I believe, is October 1st. San Jose, California. Somebody in here was there earlier in the chat room from California. Here's one you can go to, San Jose, California.
Oh my
October
God.
1st.
San Jose is, right? San Jose is the Winchester House. Am I correct?
Yes. I believe
Yeah.
that's where it is.
Yeah, I'm almost sure. San Jose. My son was actually there. Joshua was there last weekend. And I haven't
wow.
got, yeah, he was there, took a road trip, amazing trip. I would have loved to win on it, but I wasn't able to. And he went to San Jose, and I said, whatever you do, you got to drive, at least drive by the Winchester House. Absolutely. That's the place I want to go, by the way. That's one of my bucket lists.
Okay. So I believe this is this weekend. So this will be the last time I'll be showing this until next year.
Let me see it again.
The other one.
Go ahead.
This one was last weekend, so I can go ahead and delete this. So D&M Paranormal. He was a guest on the show, so I was showing his banner for a while. But that was last weekend.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. That, Lynn, that is amazing. I can't believe that you're going to show ours. I think I've got 3 that you're going to show the events are over. That's just a great thing.
Well, that's what I wanted a show for. I kind of do this show a lot like I learned from Johnny Carson and Joey Bishop. I don't know how old you are, and please don't tell me things. It's not my business. But I don't know if you remember who Joey Bishop was. He was Johnny Carson, if you remember him, predecessor on the Tonight Show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I didn't know that. Okay.
I came up watching Joey Bishop and, of course, Johnny Carson getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And, E.N.S. Holly, you made it in here. You're watching on YouTube. I had to tell him he was I believe it was a friend of yours, E.N.S. Holly, Lord Inquisitor. He requested a link to where he could watch the show, and he has made it into the chat room off YouTube. So he's, please like, share, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. But now we talked about the events you're involved with again. We want to hit that. And the first up, of course, is Reboot Recovery with the RIP and the Wraith Chasers, Chris and Mike. That would be a fun event to go to. Of course, the Wraith Chasers are on television. They're seen to do it right for TV. A lot of them do it wrong. And the benefits is going to the Reboot Recovery Veteran Suicide Awareness.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And Granbury, Texas, again, I don't know, you probably don't know a lot about Granbury, Texas, and I don't know as much as I would like to know, but they are so military servicemen and women orientated. They you can walk around the town and there's banners all over of servicemen and women who have served in the military. A lot of them are retired or has passed. And they do all kinds of events for military and servicemen and women. Absolutely. Granbury is a town that is absolutely full of hauntings and spirit. It's a great place to go. And this courthouse, the Granbury courthouse that they're going to be investigating, like I told you earlier, has never been investigated before. And it took a lot for the team to fall in there and get this and make this happen. It wasn't an easy thing to get the permission to investigate this place. So Greg Stevens and his team is going to be investigating it. He knows a lot of history about the town and about the courthouse. And again, the architecture of this place alone speaks for itself. It's got to have an amazing amount of spirit
Yes, it would
and
have to.
history in this building. So please do get your tickets. Come and join this investigation. It's put on by a great team. It's put on by very professional people. And the founder, Greg Stevens, is he was in the military for 26 years, and he is retired now. So he knows he's been investigating, as far as I know, since he was a child. So he knows a lot about investigations and how to put them on. I think that everyone would have a great time.
Okay, that's cool. And military is kind of close to me. You don't know this about me, but you did hear me earlier say that I'm from Columbus, Georgia, which is a military town. It's right next door to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which is where home of the airborne. It's got the only jump towers in the military. So SEALs, Navy, the Air Force people, all the paratroopers have to go through Fort Benning. I worked at Fort Benning for many years. I was a contractor with Fort Benning for several years. So I spent a lot of time in the military. I also went to college there, where I graduated, Troy University, for a while, for several years, in fact, a couple of decades. Had an auxiliary there at Fort Benning. And rather than going to the main location closer to you, Troy, Alabama, that I went to the Fort Benning branch, which meant that 99.999% of my college classmates were active duty military or at least married to one or the child of one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when people say, well, you don't know anything about the military, you didn't serve. I practically did.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't in the military either, but I have a deep-seated feeling for the military, for those that served and those that gave it all. Very much so. And my family's military.
Uh-huh.
So I know a lot about World War II, and I never stopped studying and I never stopped learning about World War II. A cemetery is a great place to visit the plaques. Instead of headstones, you see the little bronze plaque
Yes.
that is there. Every single one that's World War II. I'll go through cemeteries. Matter of fact, there's an old cemetery out on the other side of Mineral Wells, and I can think of at least 6 World War II veterans that's buried there, and I visit those graves, and I ask questions, and I do EVPs, and sometimes I get things.
Yes.
Pretty much. Mm-hmm.
One little thing with Baxter's Grove, I was talking about it earlier with Libby May and, of course, her mother, Amelia. There is a Civil War veteran buried there.
Oh, wow.
And he's got the little Civil War plaque there. Mm-hmm. And you can go in there if you go to his grave and ask his name. He will speak to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's always fun talking to the veterans. And he did not die in the Civil War. He didn't die until the 1880s. He died an older man. I think it was in his 80s when he died. Mm-hmm. But he did fight for the Union. He was U.S. Army during the Civil War. He is still there in Baxter's Grove.
I actually went to Evel Knievel's grave in Butte, Montana, with my friend. Yeah, I had a bunch of friends up here, and we were doing an investigation. And I went to his gravesite, Butte, Montana. Yeah, they've got arrows and signs and stuff that lead you to his gravesite. And I was mesmerized. I was touched, no doubt. And when everybody started walking around the graveyard, I went back by myself. And I sit there. There's beer cans and all types of things that people leave there for him. And I sat down with my recorder and I said, give me in a few short words or one word. I said, I know you lived an incredible life. I know that you was a religious man. Tell me something that I need to know. Tell me something that might help my future just from the experiences that you had living your life as you did. And my friends started coming back. I put it away. And when I had the chance a couple of days later, I pulled it out and I heard this moaning. I kid you not, I still have it. He didn't say anything, but I heard a moan. I mean, a long moan. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew what he said.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about cemeteries at Fort Benning there in Columbus. Of course, the sister city to Columbus is, some people call it a leech in Columbus, is, of course, Phoenix City, which used to be Girard, Alabama, before they cleared it up. And they called it Phoenix. They meant to spell it like your name and like the Arizona town.
Yeah.
But they misspelled it.
How? Tell me. N-I?
P-H N-I, I think they used an E or O. They misplaced a couple of letters in the name. And you look it up, Phoenix City, Alabama, and you can see how they kind of made a new spelling for Phoenix.
I'll have to look that up because I was born in Alabama.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. And look up the history of Girard, Alabama, which was Phoenix City's previous name. It was a gambling pit. That's why a lot of people call it the Leech.
Okay.
On Columbus and Fort Benning, because they organized crime ran it, not the big mafia, but a southern mafia, a local mafia ran it. Of course, a lot of small towns. If you remember the movies Walking Tall, that's what they were based on.
Yeah.
The original Walking Tall from I think 70s, 80s.
70s. No.
70s.
No. Was it? I don't know. Maybe it was 70s.
Late 70s, I think. And of course, there was about 3 or 4 of them made back then into the 80s. But that was based on local mafia taking over a small town and just paying off state officials so they don't come in there. Well, there was a guy that was killed on the courthouse steps, and the governor said, okay, enough's enough, and sent in the state guard to get control of the city. And they went in there and just cleaned it out, cleaned out the politicians, basically just started over, closed all the gambling halls. And still, when the river gets low during a drought, you can look down at the bottom and you can see the remains of the old slot machines that they threw in the river.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I have to look that up. That's interesting. I'll have to look
So
that up.
that's an interesting history, called Girard, Alabama, which is now called Phoenix City.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of Phoenix City is a suburb, just a small little hamlet. It's a trailer park and a few homes there, called Fort Mitchell, Alabama. The town is the same name, the same as a cemetery. It's supposed to be a massive cemetery area to bury people in the South instead of taking them all up north in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C.
You know what? We need to talk about cemeteries and cemetery etiquette sometime.
Yes.
I would love to do. That's one of my studies, and it's one of my studies, and it's really deep and it's really interesting. So let's do that sometime. We'll talk about graveyard etiquette.
Okay. Now, what I want to do now is go back to where you're going to appear. Is to the holistic fair.
Yep, holistic fair. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if you could just go back again, what you're going to be doing there.
So the Holistic Gypsy Soul Fair that's going to be held in Frisco, Texas, October the 29th and 30th. I will be a reader there. And I also do burden readings, and I also do spiritual advisement. So those are the three things that I'll be offering there at the fair. And I will be doing a Q&A on all things paranormal. And I'll
Okay.
be doing Saturday and Sunday. And I don't know what time. I don't know when I'm on the schedule, but I will be doing that. I can't say enough about the readers that come there. They're just amazing. I mean, just amazing people. A lot of them are friends of mine that I've been with for several years, and you can't make a mistake. They're all very good. Very, very, very good. The vendors there has some amazing products. I mean, just to go there and look at just at the vendor tables alone and all the things that they have to offer. There's a couple of healers there. There may be more than that, but usually there's at least 2 or 3 healers that are there. Some of them do energy healing, and I don't know what all of them do, but there's a variety of things that you can have done on a personal level. And again, anything that you can possibly think of that's metaphysical, it's there. So yeah, please come out and see us on October the 29th and 30th in Frisco at the Frisco Convention Center.
Okay. One last one we want to hit on, and then we'll go back to our conversation, is the History Haunts and Legends in
Absolutely.
Jefferson, Texas.
Jefferson, Texas, History Haunts and Legends. Saturday night, there will be an investigation, and you'll be going from home to home, and there'll be someone that's leading those investigations, and you get the opportunity. If you've never investigated before and you're really interested in knowing what's going on with the paranormal, this is a great place to start. It's a great place to start because everybody that's going to be in charge there of the homes, when you'll go from plantation to plantation, home to home. And like I said, the old mill also will be an investigation site, and there's many of them that I'm sure I don't even know about. But you go together as a group, and someone leads up the investigation, and you try to contact with spirit, and you see how that's done. So if you're just getting into the paranormal, or if you're a seasoned veteran in the paranormal, come out. You will love this. And again, it isn't just the ghost tour is amazing. If you want to go on the ghost tour, the investigation is amazing on Saturday night. Just be prepared to move very quickly from place to place. But it's wonderful. And outside of that, it's a great place to visit. I mean, you won't get bored. Again, great places to eat. The Hayward House, Austin Street Bistro. Auntie Skinner's is a great place to go and have a few drinks and listen to music. A lot of karaoke if you like to karaoke. Auntie Skinner's is the place to be. So don't miss this. And if you get the opportunity to go, try to look me up and say hello.
Okay. Well, I don't mind karaoke. It's the trouble is that when I do karaoke, other people mind it.
I have the same problem. And a drink or two too much, and oh dear, I'm a mess.
Yes.
I love to karaoke. I love to sing. I do. Am I good at it? Probably not.
I know I'm not. I'll give you a written guarantee that I'm not.
Well, I got some friends that's really good. And you know what I do? When they get up and do their karaoke, I videotape them so that they can have it forever.
There you go.
So I got a job in karaoke, but it's not singing.
Camera person.
That camera girl. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. That's what I do best. So,
wow.
Anyway, all 3 of these events are going to be epic. And, I get people, like I said earlier, all the time. And they're messaging me, hey, Phoenix, what's going on? What's a good place to go investigate? Because a lot of these people aren't members of teams, or they don't have enough contact yet to find out where to go and what's going on. So I can't commend you enough to allow me the opportunity to bring up these 3 events, and the fact that you put these all out for other people as well. I just think that's an amazing thing, and I thank you for that.
That's what I'm here for. That's why I created the show. It's not, if it was all about me, I'd just do an hour show every night and talk about me.
Yeah.
Being from Georgia, Georgians can talk. We can go all night. But the show is not about me. It's about people like you and events like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a strong believer in the world's not about me. The world's not about all of us. It's about all of us, not me, not you, but about all of us. I really believe that, and I try to live that way.
Well, you hit a strong point about with the history, haunts, and legends that people who are just getting into the paranormal need to go to events like this where they can see real paranormal investigators and see how it's really done.
That's correct. And then you know a few things. The first thing you go, oh, so this is how it works. But pretty soon, if your heart's in the right place, you'll start having questions of your own.
Yes.
And when you get an answer, you're hooked. You don't ever go back. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, come out and get your feet wet. And any questions, if I can help in any way, and Jody's amazing. You can ask her anything and she can point you in the right direction. But like I said, if you come, and you won't be disappointed.
Well, some people say, well, what do I need to bring? I would say bring an open mind.
That's it.
Bring something to write on, a legal pad. If you want to attach it to a clipboard, that gives you a better writing surface. Bring a pencil or a pen, whatever you like to write in. Maybe if you're going to change something, bring a pencil with a good eraser. Maybe a sharpener in case you break your point. Bring a couple of pens so in case one quits, you got a backup.
Yep.
And maybe a flashlight.
Good idea. So you don't stumble and fall, first of all.
Yes.
And if you know, flashlights can be used, especially if it's the twist type, for many things.
Yes. Of course, if more experienced, go to the Lowe's or Home Depot, and they can or can find, if you go to Amazon, you imagine you could find these, a headlight, with a headband that goes around your head.
Yes.
They can either go to very bright white light, but can also go red or green light.
Yeah,
and that
the red
keeps you from
the red's
red
really,
or green. Yes, red or green. They won't blind your fellow investigators. I don't know if you know this. The eyes, red, we'll see light's kind of unique. It's both beam and particle. So it's kind of unique in the universe. It has lengths, it has wavelengths, which being a particle beam makes it very unique. But red has a longer wavelength. And when red light hits your eyes, it forces your pupils to dilate, which means you have good night vision. Green has no effect on the pupil of the eye, which means if they're shut, they stay shut. If they're open, green has no effect. If they're wide open to see red light, green will not close them. They will stay open. And you want your pupils open to have night vision, to allow the most light in. So if you open your pupils with red light and you use only red or green light, you will maintain your night vision so you can literally see in the dark.
Well, I'm notorious for shining bright white light into my fellow investigators' eyes.
And you blind them.
No, do. I don't mean to, but everybody, I'll be just, wandering around in my own little world, and somebody go, Phoenix, please stop. And I'm like,
Yes.
so yeah, I'm horrible with the flashlight. They usually don't let me carry one.
But carry a red or a green, and that won't happen.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll do that from now on, and I'll tell them that you told me so.
Or you can go to, like I said, Lowe's or any really good Home Depot store or Amazon and find you a red or green headlamp.
I actually have one, but I always keep it on the white.
Yeah,
No,
keep it.
It goes different.
You only keep it on the white when you're setting up. If you're setting up a DVR, you need a white light.
Mm-hmm.
But once the lights are off and the investigation is started, the equipment is set up and running, turn the white light off, turn it on red or green, whatever your preference is.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's really good information, by the way. Really good information.
And the headlamp, of course, being on your head, is right above your eyes. So wherever you look, your light's on whatever you're looking at. And your hands are free to hold a millimeter, K2 meter, or just to sit there and hold your clipboard with a legal pad and a pen in the other hand.
Yeah, that's a really, really good idea. One other thing I was going to ask you about tonight, and our viewers about tonight, that I'd like to have some information on, and I'll tell you why. Get other people's opinion other than my own. Do children spirits age? So I was at an investigation about 5 or 6 months ago. It wasn't just it was an event. It wasn't just an investigation. It was an event. And I actually spoke at this event. And I spoke on psychometry. I do psychometry, by the way. And I also read vessel dolls. And I was speaking on that at that event. And after I kept noticing all night, this guy kept looking at me like, he was trying to get my attention to talk to me. And I was busy. I was very busy, but I didn't forget it. But anyway, at the very, very end of the event, I was leaving. And I walked outside the door and he said, "Excuse me, but I have a question." And this man was very serious. I mean, this man was a younger man. You could tell he was filled with sadness. And I said, "Certainly. What is your question?" And he said, "Do children age in spirit?" I didn't know what to say. I don't know if I had ever really thought about that. And I said, "I believe they do. I believe they age." But I said, "I don't know that for sure. I can't tell you that, and I don't have a reason behind it." But I said, "I think they do. What is your opinion, man? What is our viewers' opinions? I would love to know."
Okay. Well, my experience with Libby May, which I have extensive experience, Tammy Love, just a minute ago, said, "I've always wondered that." So we're hitting on an interesting subject. It's actually getting feedback in the chat
Tammy
room.
Love, very good friend of mine. Thank you, Tammy, for watching this show tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Libby May, she would not appear as a full apparition, but you could see her moving, and she was about the same size as she was when she died at 11 months and 4 days old. She had learned to talk. She learned some complicated words, still kind of spoke like a child.
Okay.
But she knew things that you just don't know at 11 months and 4 days. And she could actually talk like most kids cannot do at 11 months. So they do learn. And I think they can appear basically once they learn how to do it. And they've got to learn how to do that. That's not something you do automatically. You got to learn how. And they can appear at about any age they want to. But to appear and say that what they would have looked like at 30 years old is a why. Why should they do that? Now, I've never known a spirit to appear that died at say 15 years old and say, "Oh, this is how I would look had I made 40." No, I've never seen one do that. That's
No,
beyond
no,
my experience.
either. And I think children, well, I have a lot of opinions on children. We'll save that for another show. But we that's getting in when we start speaking of children and do they age and that sort of thing. And I believe, well, I know that I have talked to you about this before. I believe in purgatory, number one. I believe
Yes.
in ascension, and I believe in the constant state of refinement. And so that gets into a whole different, deeper subject
Mm-hmm.
than just the fact, do children age?
Right.
So if you get some comments on that, I would love to hear what they are so that we can take that further down the road.
Okay. Right now, we're not. This got the one comment about I'd like to know that kind of stuff. I knew
Yep.
one spirit. It's in the Gisner house in Chicago. And one of the previous owners, depends on the room she's in, what age she would appear as. She would appear as she was when she died, an older woman. She would appear as her happiest days in marriage, in her 30s. She would also appear as she grew up in the house as a child. And it sometimes depended on the room she was in and who she was appearing in front of.
She was reliving her life.
Yes. She appeared to me in one room, the library, as an older person, looked like she was in her 50s. She escorted my wife down the staircase as a child. My wife looks like everybody's nanny. She doesn't like to go in locations where there's children's spirits because they're all attracted to her. They all want to talk to her, touch her, hold her hand. And
Yes.
the same spirit appeared to her as a child, held her hand going down the staircase. Even though there's no history of any child passing away into the house, it's the same spirit appearing at different ages.
So that goes back to what I believe in. This takes me down another road that I know we don't have time for tonight, but that's very interesting. My daughter-in-law is a school teacher.
Okay.
And there's a graveyard right across the street from my house. Isn't that ironic? I go there. But anyway, I took her there one night. She wants to believe in the metaphysical. And, of course, my son grew up with me. And he's like, okay, this is boring. Let's go. But one night we went and everybody was just on the same train. It was just a great night. And she and I are standing at a child's. Now, she's a school teacher, keep in mind. We were standing at this little child's with a little lamb on the top of her gravestone. Her name was Annie. And my daughter-in-law is standing there like a statue. And she said, Phoenix, she's holding my hand. I believed her. I had no doubts. And I believe that people of different professions, again, just like we was talking about earlier, that spirit can read our intention. They can read our breath. They know who we are. And I believe that that's how the little girl reached to her, because she's a school teacher and she is with children all the time. So her spirit would have children energy around it all the time. And of course, everything, as we know, everything's energy, right? I don't fully believe that, but it, to a certain degree, it is. Energy is everything in spirit. So anyway, we'll talk about that another time. But I truly believe that there's certain people that different types of spirits will attract to. Absolutely.
Yeah, my wife is proof of that. The kids just flock to her.
Yep.
It makes her nervous. Now,
Yeah.
I was investigating one place in Chicago. I'm not going to go. It's too long of a story to go into the whole thing. But about over 20 spirits were being held there against their will by
Oh. Mm-hmm.
a former mob figure,
Mm-hmm.
a rather powerful one.
Yep.
And years ago, on the interstate, which is right this like downtown Southside Chicago, busy interstate going right in front, just 100 yards away from the building's front door. There, out in the middle of the interstate, a decade or so ago, maybe a decade and a half, maybe 2 decades now, there was a wreck there. The entire family was killed. For some reason, maybe the others died instantly and the little girl lived a few seconds longer than everybody else, but she did not go with the rest of her family. And she went to the first place she saw where people were.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this bar, believe it or not, that had just started at that time recently from an old mortuary that was there before.
Oh, jeepers, really?
And she got held by this mob figure, keeping her and a bunch of others, so he wouldn't be by himself. He was very limited in his mobility. Call it a curse of God or whatever. He was pretty well stuck there. His house was torn down by the time I investigated there, so he had no home to go to. It was torn down for a subdivision. There was nothing there that he could go to even stick to a piece of property.
He was looking lost. Mm-hmm.
And the only place he had was where his funeral was held. And he did not want to be inside this former mortuary by himself. So he kept over 20 people there. And one of them was a child. And my wife felt that spirit. She could feel it and didn't like going in there. It was kind of a crazy place. On Friday and Saturday night, there was a lot of cocaine usage here. And just being frank, I do have the mature audience tag on YouTube and do have the mature audience warning at the front of the show. So it's just shown. So yeah, there was cocaine usage there. I'm not going to toy with you. And my wife didn't like going to the bathroom because you could smell the cocaine. And it was often said that you could go in the men's room or the ladies' room, sniff the counter, and get a cocaine high.
Oh my gosh. Oh dear. Oh, wow.
And one girl walked in there on a paranormal investigation because they allowed me to come in there and lead investigations. They didn't do it until I said, I will lead your investigations if you want to make a little money. So they would charge $10 a piece, which is how cheap an investigation do you want when you got to pay $10 a person? You can't go anywhere today for that. You may be looking at $50 a person to do an investigation. Mm-hmm. They charge 10. They keep a bartender there overnight. Of course, you're expected to tip the bartender, and she serve you Coke all night long, and then sell you drinks after the investigation. But she serve you a bunch of free Coke for $10. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'd lead the investigation, so she just stood behind the bar. And one girl walked in there one night that was conducive, I guess is the word, with child spirits. And she had one come up like you were talking about with the school teacher and clung to her hand. And I actually was standing beside her and saw she was wearing, it was Halloween. It was kind of a translucent dress. And I could see the intention of a little girl squeezed up against her dress. I could not see the spirit itself, but I could see the intention in the dress where the spirit stood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have you ever experienced or had any information on the black-eyed children? Do you know about black-eyed children?
I've talked to people who specialize in that. I have never experienced it, and I really haven't had the time to do research on it. I let other people handle that. If that's their ballywick, let them have it. I'm not going to sit there
Yeah,
and just do amateur sleuthing into it.
I've never seen it, but I have a friend who has, and she's a lot more educated in it than I am. But I ask people that if they've ever had that experience. I know virtually nothing about it, but I'm
That's me.
always open.
Tammy Love made a comment. She said, I think, talking about children, I think they may mentally age and progress, but they know we wouldn't recognize them at an older age.
Very good point.
That is a very good point. Why
good.
should a child that, like Libby May's brother, younger brother, died at 15? Why should he appear as an adult in front of me?
Right.
You know, this is how I would look at 40. When I knew him, in the fact that he died at age 15.
So they don't actually, their formation doesn't actually change, but they grow in spirit through experience by being on the earth plane for all those years.
Mm-hmm. Two words. They learn.
Exactly. They learn. And you know what? Maybe that's my my idea of a constant state of refinement.
Yes. I have investigated with people, and I've done it once or twice myself, but I've seen this asked a bunch of times. They'll ask, what year is it?
Well, that's one of my favorites. That's mine. What's the last year you remember?
Yep. And you get two different answers. They will give you a last one, maybe the last year they were alive, that they remember, but they will give you the correct year.
I have seen that happen. Yes.
So they're actively learning.
Mm-hmm.
I had an investigator. He's a Titanic fan. I got to talking to Amelia at Bachelor's Grove, the white lady on the stone. He asked her what the captain's name was of the Titanic. This is a lady who died in 1881. The Titanic didn't happen to what, 1912?
I think so.
He asked her the captain's name of the Titanic. She answered with the correct answer.
Wow.
How in the world did she know the name of the captain? Well, the Titanic wasn't even built in 1881. I imagine it was kind of designed, but they sure didn't know who the captain would be.
Because spirits talk to each other.
Yeah. 3 decades later, the Titanic sails, and she picks the captain's name.
Yeah.
3 decades after she died.
Yeah. They talk.
Yeah, they talk. They learn.
Some night I'll share with you an audio that I have of spirit talking. And I showed that to Dan LaFave, Old Park Hotel in Ballinger, just a couple weeks ago. And he was like, where did you get that? That's exactly what we heard. And he goes, where did you get that? Well, I recorded it off of a video that we had, a big boom, the boom mic.
Yes.
Several years ago. And I just kept it. I keep it on my phone. I keep a lot of things on my phone.
Of course.
But yeah, we'll have to visit that again. I might even do a little bit of studying on it. I might do some investigations on it. Another question that I absolutely...
Before we get to another question.
Yes.
There's something I got to do. I do it at midnight. So if you bear with me about 40 seconds.
Absolutely.
Turn down the volume on your earbuds. I don't know what you're using for a speaker. Turn the volume down. This is rather loud. We are now entering overtime. We are after midnight. I'm allowed to do this by Ted and the good people at WLFE, my network, DB, by the way. And they do allow me to, since I'm the last show on air during the day, obviously, they're East Coast based. There's not too many people going to start a show at 1 o'clock a.m. So since I basically got till tomorrow night before another show airs, they let me have plenty of time. And we are now going at overtime with Phoenix Jansen. We're fixing to start a whole new discussion. So Phoenix, take it away down the road we wanted to go down.
The road I was going down is a question that I absolutely love. And I ask it almost every single investigation. Can you see me? Can you see?
You ask them that.
I do. And
Right.
I've got some answers. Amazing. Yes. I also like to do, and I say these things because a lot of people, especially if you're new in the paranormal, they get a little short of questions to ask. You can always ask if they can see you. I get amazing answers with that. Another question, and then it just skipped my mind, that I wanted to say that I asked. We did the what year is it? What's the last year that you remember? There was one more that I wanted to bring up tonight, and I didn't write it down, and now I can't think what it was. So
okay,
that
I
was
asked a similar question to what you said.
Okay.
I'll see something. I do a lot of concentrating, and when you try to focus your eyes not on the physical objects in front of you, but what's between you and physical objects, like you'll see a wall in a room, and you try to focus your eyes about halfway between the wall and your eyes, which is hard to do. You just got to practice. There's nothing there but air and dust. And you can see, if you concentrate enough, you can see dust particles moving in the air. If it's high humidity, you can actually see water droplets in the air in front of you. But with all the dust and the water vapor and the dirt that's in the air that we breathe in our lungs every day, you can see a spirit moving through the air, even when it's totally invisible to the light that's hitting it, because nothing's being reflected. You can see a body moving through the air. And sometimes I've had spirits walking by me or toward me that I could see. And I just look at them and said, I can see you, right? And the responses I've gotten over the years just saying that simple statement are amazing. Some of them, it stops them cold. Every one of them stopped cold and will look at me. Some of them will come in close and far back. They'll take a step toward me and get right in my face and move back to see if I can truly see them. Others will stop and look. Some of them will take a step backwards and start retreating, or maybe try to go on their merry way wherever they were headed. It scares some of them because all of a sudden this human being that they were just passing said something directly to them. And they're not used to that.
No, they're not.
And I've gotten several different reactions. Some of them are ready to talk. Hey, let's sit down. We'll stand here and have a conversation. Others are they're more scared of me than I am of them.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of fear in the spirit world. Now, I may be missing something, but I don't get a lot. I don't come in contact with a lot of fearful spirit. Confusion sometimes. I have come across confusion.
Yes.
But I believe with all my heart that spirits have a lot to offer.
Yes, they do.
I think that any that thinks that they know everything in the paranormal world, they know nothing. None of us ever will. In
No.
anything we can give, that we can get from the spirit world and share with each other, is vitally important, because none of us will ever live long enough to understand spirit.
No.
And I study it every day of my life, and I have since I was a very young child. And I believe that they will. I believe your spirits, your guides, your gatekeepers, your angels. I believe all of these spirits will guide you if you listen, and train yourself to listen. I believe, and you know what? If you don't, your guides, your spirits, your angels, your gatekeepers, they're still going to be there. Every one of us is born with a guide. Every one of us have angels. And if you listen closely enough and you believe strongly enough, they will help you. You may not ever know it all, and you won't ever know it all. But if you watch it on a daily basis, it's amazing.
Yes.
What
Well,
spirit
it says in the Bible, and I gather you are a religious person.
I am,
When
very
it
much.
comes right down to it. It says in the Bible that no man will learn everything.
Right.
Even pastors will admit that they know next to nothing about how the afterlife works, because it's not our place to learn how the afterlife works. Some churches have no more and have their guesses. I don't know, guesses right, their thoughts right, their opinions righter than other churches. Like Southern Baptist, and you're one and I'm one, don't believe in purgatory. There's nobody, hardly anybody here in the state of Arkansas that believes in purgatory, and therefore they don't believe in ghosts. I get a hard time by neighbors or people I talk to. Oh, you're the ghost hunter. I don't believe in ghosts.
I don't believe in ghosts. Now, the ghost and spirits, two different things. Completely.
Right. But they don't believe in the spirits or anything like that at all. Some people go so far as to theorize that I don't talk to ghosts or spirits. I talk to demons. And that's the way it goes down here in the Bible Belt. But yeah, that's it. But Catholics have the purgatory thing right. They believe there is a purgatory, and that some people go to purgatory, some don't. I'm also a believer in the second greatest thing God ever gave mankind. Of course, we know what the first greatest thing is. The second greatest thing is free will.
Absolutely, free will. Oh, beautiful subject
And
to talk about.
They don't. That was not made with this flesh. What everybody's looking at, this part. This is just a few chemicals, about $25 worth of chemicals mixed with water, and you get this. That's not me. The soul is me, which is what's left when this container dies.
One body, soul, one spirit, eternal star.
Yes, and it moves on. Now, if like the guy who was holding the spirits hostage in Chicago, he does not want to go to the other side very far, because he broke about every law there was. He was a mobster. He killed people. He killed people for Al Capone. If you ever watched James Bond and knew the meaning of Spectre, what it stood for, Society for I forget, or extortion, terror. He was a domestic terrorist in the 20s. He ran the Black Hand gang before Al Capone left New York, came to Chicago, and took over the Black Hands gang. And that was the Black Hands gang was an Italian gang. His was called the 26th Street gang, that would come in, and Italian immigrants without a penny in their pocket to come in here for a better life, he'd get them jobs. but he would also take a percentage of the money they made at their job and put it in his pocket. If they didn't pay that percentage, he used the black hands, which was black gloves, so they didn't bust open their skin when they hit you upside the head. They didn't want to damage you. You don't want to break an arm or break a leg, because then you couldn't go to work and they wouldn't get their percentage. But they'd mess up your face, where you knew the next time you got paid, you gave that man his percentage.
I'm sure.
And that's what kind of person he was. He did not, he was scared. He was generally scared. Most of your mobsters were practicing Catholics. And they knew that they were not going to go to heaven and sit on the right hand of Jesus Christ doing what they did in life. Given free will, they went to purgatory.
I believe that purgatory can, and this is only me, I don't have anything to back this up biblically or anyone that I've ever dealt with other than spirit. I believe that sometimes purgatory can be on earth. I believe that you can do things and people, you've heard the statement, why is this happening to me? Why am I in this position? Why am I in this place? I believe that you can go through purgatory on earth before you die.
Sometimes some people agree with you that I've talked to that say that this life we're living is purgatory. There is a purgatory that's next to this world, where we don't have to walk around in this meat bags that we walk around in, and that's what the soul is in, basically a meat bag. Or they said in one Star Trek episode, bags of water, which is a pretty good definition of the human body. There was an alien that didn't live in a meat bag, but basically the soul is living in this body. The other purgatory, and what we would call purgatory away from here, we exist as a soul, and the only way we can know each other is if we appear like we do now.
Yeah, and one soul, one eternal star. And so I don't know if you've ever gotten into this, but fragmentation. Have you ever studied fragmentation? I study it every day. I don't think a day goes by that I don't think about my higher self or fragmentation. I don't know if I truly believe in fragmentation. My battery's getting low. I don't know if I believe in fragmentation, but I do look for answers in that arena all the time, because I believe in one soul.
Yes.
But in fragmentation, you can have fragments of your soul in other places at the same time. I don't know if I don't fully believe that. I don't fully not believe it, but I don't fully believe it. But I do believe this. I do believe that pieces of your soul can get lost. Now, is that part of fragmentation? I don't know.
Don't know.
But you call the lost pieces of your soul back to you.
Yes.
To be whole.
I believe that. Yeah. I believe that.
I do believe
I'll tell you an experience that I had. Look up.
My battery may die, so if I lose you, you'll know what happened.
Okay. You could plug it into your charger and let it run that way.
It's in the other room. But we're good. Well, I'm sure I'm good for a few more minutes. I'm sure I am.
Okay. We'll keep on going, and when you fade away, I could just talk for a few minutes until you go get your charger and plug it in.
Okay. You want to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk now. I'll come in and push this little button right here, and I'll talk. By the way, this is unprepared. What we have talked about so far is really interesting. What we're continuing to talk about is interesting. WLFE, DB, if you want to continue watching that, you can continue watching there and watch my YouTube channel or watch my Facebook channel. There's several things, a lot of the things I don't explain about the show. This is my hat. The feather came from Bachelor's Grove, a gift of an Indian shaman. That is some of my equipment sitting on the bed in the very haunted Andrew Jackson Hotel in downtown French Quarter, New Orleans. And yes, I've investigated many times in New Orleans.
I have not. I want to.
This picture right here is myself and my wife. We were at a, what is the name of that place? O'Doul's, or a very popular bar restaurant. We were out in the outside in the area between buildings, a little courtyard in New Orleans, an extremely popular place there. So I like to show that picture. And while I had a minute, Woody can explain that picture. That's the wife and I. That's Gail right behind me, and me in my hat with the feather that I got from a shaman in Bachelor's Grove. But what I was going to tell you, whoops.
You should keep that. Never lose that feather.
I do.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Let's see. Right here. There we go. Anyway, what I was going to say, look up H.H. Holmes.
Holmes?
H.H. Holmes, right.
Okay, I will.
I have talked to his great grandson. He and I are friends. He lives in Vegas. He was actually on the History Channel for, I think, about 10 episodes, talking about his book he wrote on his ancestor. His ancestor was one of the first mass murderers in Chicago, which is also related to my Bachelor's Grove investigations. That's too long of a story to go into right now. But he had the murder house in Chicago in 1893 during the Columbian Exposition, which, of course, was the World's Fair held in Chicago.
Wow.
Which, by the way, the people see the stars in the Chicago flag. The 1893 Columbian Exposition is represented by one of the stars on the Chicago flag. H.H. Holmes had a place he advertised as a hotel. There were no rooms to be had, and millions of people coming through Chicago. He advertised those rooms, and it was rumored, this is not stated in any kind of real historical records. Most of those records are purged. But it's rumored that he would rent rooms out. He had gas rigged to the rooms, would kill people staying in the room, especially young women, would dip them in an acid vat and sell the skeletons to colleges. Most of the skeletons in current schools to this day, the real skeletons, of course, most schools now use plastic.
Yeah.
But the real skeletons in schools that you see hanging in the back room or whatever were provided by H.H. Holmes.
I'm going to look that up tomorrow.
Look that up.
I will. That's amazing. I've never heard that.
His ancestor wrote a book about that. H.H. Holmes resided in purgatory, and there were a lot of people you've heard that had out-of-body experiences where they could voluntarily pull their soul out of their body and go places. There was a group out west that's how they investigated. They investigated, according to them, around the world without leaving their hometown.
Astral
projection, astral investigation, call it what you will. They would investigate. If you had a problem, they would investigate your home astrally. They would not come to your home, which makes it handy if you want to clean a house in England or France or even in New York City or Buffalo or wherever from the West Coast. You don't have to catch a plane, and you don't have to get in a car.
You just
You
go
just get
astral.
together you just go astral. H.H. Holmes picked up on this and was looking for somebody, a man with medical training that had the fingers trained to do surgeries and that went astral and was planning on zipping into their body and taking over their body, condemning them to be forever in purgatory, while he was in this side taking over their body. That's what he was planning. He haunted me. He appeared to me a couple of times and astrally killed me. I was trained after that by a relative of my wife who also exists in purgatory, who does not like H.H. Holmes because she was a religious person. She's not the evil person that she is made out to be. Marie Laveau is an ancestor of my wife. Timmy Loves.
I knew that. You told me that. I had forgotten Marie Laveau. Anytime you want to talk about Marie Laveau, I would love to. Marie Laveau.
She's a nice person. She's
amazing. Yes. I know so much. I have learned so much, read and studied Marie Laveau in New Orleans. And I want to go to where she's buried. I think she's truly buried in District 1, not District 2, or District 2, not District 1. I think she's buried in District 1. I have to go back and look. But
the District 2, the second cemetery where her actual tomb is, you can't get in there except on tour anymore.
I know. I heard that. But
because people were doing stuff to her tomb, they were writing all over it. They spent a lot of money cleaning it off. They did some repair work to it, and they didn't want people tearing it back up. Not spending thousands of dollars.
So there's an alternative. There's an alternative to writing on Marie Laveau's tombstone and get wish. You understand that what that writing on her tombstone, the 3 X's, comes from when Marie Laveau was young, and you came to her and you needed her help. You knocked 3 times. It didn't matter what time of the night or day it was. She came. She opened the door. So you go to Marie Laveau's grave now and you take like a brick, and there's bricks all over the place in New Orleans, I'm sure. I mean, I've heard people say that, but you make 3 X's on there and make on her tombstone, and you make a wish. And that wish is supposed to come true. Well, a few years ago, a lady went and did that, and she won the lottery.
Yes.
So that got to be a big thing. But if you really want to do that, you go and take a piece of, it can be any type of paper. It can be typing paper, but it needs to be big, like so. And you do a rubbing on her tombstone. A rubbing is where you would take like something flat and you would rub it over, and it would give you the image on that paper tombstone. Okay.
Right.
So then you bring it home and you frame it. And if you want to make that wish, you want to do that, and you want to make a wish and you need her help. Now, here's the key. Being as spiritual as I believe that I am, unless that wish or desire or need is genuine and important and real, that will benefit someone else as well in your life and someone else's, or maybe many other people's, then you can do that rubbing, frame that rubbing, and then make your mark in lipstick, 3 X's in lipstick, and make your wish. In order for your wish to come true, you have to tell her what you're going to do for a charity, a society, what you're going to do, what kind of contribution you're going to make after this wish comes true.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
there's, if you remember her past, what she
absolutely.
did for a living, she was a hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best hairdressers in New Orleans.
Yes. And she got to know all the rich ladies, the wealthy people, the wealthy society. And she really got her wealth from the little bags, the little guru bags.
Yes. But she knew her power, her superpower was, of course, you've done this with your hair. You've been to a hairdresser before. You have great hair, by the way.
Thank you.
And you go to a hairdresser and you talk to your hairdresser, don't you?
Oh, about some things I wouldn't say to anybody else. Absolutely.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So her being with the best hairdresser, doing the best, the rich and powerful's wives' hair, they talked. That was her superpower. She listened.
Absolutely. She listened. She listened and she listened. And then she began to realize what they needed. They came to her. They would come to her at night or in private to get a reading and help.
Well, the way I contacted her was not leaving an X's on her stone. By the time I was down there a few years ago, they would not allow you to even touch the stone. This was before they restored it. And since then, they've restored it. And they won't let you come in. They won't hardly let you in there with anything to mark with. And they don't like the etchings because that kind of scratches up and puts wear on the stones.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but
yeah,
but what I did, I left an offering. It looks like with this picture that I've got with this lighting I have, I look bald, but you can see there's hair here. And if you go back here, there's a kind of a ponytail here. As you can see, it's on my shoulder now. What I did, I just pulled out the little twist tie I had holding my ponytail together and put it in front of her tomb. And therefore, she knew how to contact me because she had a link right there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was shortly after, and all I asked for was permission to ghost hunt without interference in New Orleans, to talk to other spirits in New Orleans. And she gave me that permission. So I can, to this day, go down to New Orleans and get rather incredible results as an investigator in New Orleans. And a year after, or no, not even a year, a few months after I did this, I was the last paranormal investigator to go through the the old, is closed now, in fact, torn down, French Quarter Wax Museum. They had, I was there on a Friday night. They were having a private party for employees Saturday night. Sunday, they kind of closed it up, locked it up. Monday morning, first thing early Monday morning, you had people going in there buying things out of the museum and taking them out because they were going to start to tear down the place. In fact, I think there were some people pulling out stuff Sunday. And I was there on Friday on a public tour. There were a few other people. I got incredible results in there in front of other people. That's too long of a story to go into now. Then everybody left about 1:30. They locked me in that place till 5 alone in a large wax museum. And that was one of the wishes that she fulfilled, was to be there in that wax museum alone, investigating, communing with the massive number of spirits in the area. And it was, the stuff I got was just incredible and absolutely unbelievable. And when I talk about what I got there, Most
Yeah.
people look at me and say, "You're crazy. You can't get stuff like that."
You
Because
can
most
if you let
people,
Spirit help you. You sure can.
and I had help. But all she came to me. She needed my help because HH was becoming too active. He was too much in between worlds, and she needed somebody from this world to take care of HH. So she taught me how to do that,
Hmm.
and I ended up I don't know where he went, but I ended up taking him out about 4 years ago, and he has not bothered anybody since then. Even his great grandson, I asked him, "Have you seen your relative or heard from him?" He says he hadn't felt him since this date, and it was the date that I went and took care of him.
Hmm.
So yes, you can pass through both worlds. He was during our little confrontation, he appeared in the room where I was, or not me, where my body was. There was enough of me in my body to sit there, and I just said, no, 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 no. You're not allowed in this house. Go.
Yeah, that's a very, you can do that. Absolutely, you can
Yeah.
do that.
A living human is more powerful than a spirit. And when I told him he had to go, he had no business here. He had no claim to here. He had nothing to cling to. He had to leave.
Right.
And I had to basically hunt him down and remove him from purgatory.
Wow. Yeah. That's
And that was that. That was that's crazy. But yes, I've been to purgatory. So yeah, I believe there's a purgatory because I've been there and done that.
It's a scary place, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's not the peaceful, loving place. There's a lot of conflict going on there because you have people who were evil in life, in this life, and they continue being evil in the other.
Sometimes, sometimes, and sometimes, and sometimes they're there long enough to realize that they need to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
And
That's how I got the spirit to release those people that he was holding hostage. Bruno Rodi is his name.
You got to read. Not all angry or evil spirits know that they're angry.
Yes, sure. And I worked with a psychic, and we got him back calmed down, stopped being angry. He released the spirits, and didn't try to move him on because he was not going to move on. I mean, he was a little bit scared about trying to move on past purgatory because as he committed the crimes he did, he knew which direction he was going, and it wasn't the up elevator. And so he is still roaming the earth, but he's not causing troubles for anybody, and he's not holding spirits captive, and he can now move around. He was not released. We had to release him from that place where he could actually go around and be with friends. I will say that, but due to that, Al Capone is quite angry with me.
I remember that story. You told me that once, and I still want to hot springs and do an EVP session on that.
If we get to Hot Springs, we've got to go to the restaurants where Al Capone's statue is inside now, so nobody will steal it.
Right.
And we've got to go in there and talk to them either at late at night when they're slowed down, or going in the morning when they're just warming up, they're cranking up for lunch or whatever. I don't know what hours they work, but to spend a little time with that statue, because Al Capone doesn't like me.
I'm sure we could do that. I'm sure that I could get in there. There's I and let them, maybe after hours, or like you said, before hours. I absolutely believe that we could do that. Another one that I want to investigate is the Arlington, the hotel there.
Yes.
It's very inexpensive to stay there. But and I want to do that. I keep saying every year in Hot Springs, I didn't get to go this year because I was ill. But
Right.
Next year I definitely want to go. And if you and your wife can't go, I'll go and record it and spend some time in that restaurant. I absolutely want to
Well,
do that.
hopefully the wife and I are, she's capable of at least moving around.
Awesome.
It will be January or February before she's anywhere near fully healed. That's up to the doctors. She's healing a little bit faster because they didn't have to put hardware in her back like they do most people who's had fusion surgery because of her powerlifting days. Her back was so muscular, it's holding the fusion together where most people would have to have metal screws or rods in there.
I think I can find out. I don't want to say for sure, but I can find out from Shayna Tibbetts what month we're going back. But I want to say it's March or April, but I'm not 100% sure. And maybe
we
the
would,
two.
It'd be nice if we got rooms close to each other.
Absolutely.
Where whoever you're with can sleep, and my wife can just. She's not going to want anything to do with an investigation. She's going to want to calm down earlier at night and go ahead and go to sleep. But if I wanted to investigate that, she has no problem with that. And
yeah, maybe go after closing. A lot of places that I go to, they like to wait until after closing and let you in. Usually not so much in the daytime, but at night, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Tammy Love said that she didn't remember, but she'd been there on tour, talking about the gravesite in New Orleans. She'd been there.
Really? She's
never investigated there, but it's on my list. She said, I don't remember, but I've been there on tour. Very unusual. So I'm not sure where she was talking about there. Then she said if she's falling asleep, she's taking some cold meds. So if you're still watching, Tammy, good night. If she's already gone, maybe she'll see this later. She'll watch the show on record.
We're going to be closing here soon also. So I hope you're feeling better, and you and I'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, because people that come on the show forget that not only is this a live show, and I call it a show because it is live on two YouTube channels and on Facebook, it's also recorded on almost all of the major podcast channels. Speaker picks it up automatically. Name your podcast channel, and it goes on there.
Okay.
As a record. So anybody you don't have to have a paranormal channel. Of course, it goes to those, but it also goes to any of the major podcast channels automatically and is archived there and is streamed on and off on a regular basis. I remember last month we were having a Zoom meeting with the network people. And he just happened to look to see what was being streamed, and it was a show that I had done a month earlier.
Oh wow! Hey, that's good to know.
What was funny, it was the show you were supposed to have appeared on, but he got sick. And my next week's guest, Dale Kazmarek, which I mentioned 2 or 3 times tonight, came in at the last minute and was on the show instead of you.
That was such a difficult time for me. It was like 5 days after your show before I even realized what day of the week it was. There was nothing I could do. It was very bad. It was bad.
That shows you what kind of friends I have in Dale Kazmarek. He found out that night that, okay, Glenn didn't have a guest. He contacted me and said, I will appear in her place. So, and that was funny that we were having that big business meeting with WLFE, and just so happened it was the show you were supposed to be on, but Dale was actually appearing on.
Well, I'm glad he did that. Tell him I really appreciate that. It makes me feel so much better because I know that had to be a difficult time for you, and I couldn't even reach out and tell you why I wasn't there. So that was real hard for me.
Greg Koss, he's another guy from the Chicago area. One other person just didn't show up for a guest. He came in at the last minute and did a show with me. And this time, Dale came in and said, I'll appear.
That's really good.
So,
that's good. Oh, tell him thank you.
He's got his own event in Chicago.
Tell him what happened. If you ever get the chance.
I did. I already have.
Yeah. Well, it was on Facebook, I guess. I didn't know for about 2 weeks, but it was on Facebook, and I thought, well, he'll see it, and then you'll know what happened. It was like that happened with like 5 or 6 people. It was just a terrible time for me, and most everybody saw it on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm not sure who put it on Facebook, but yeah.
But Dale's got his own event. Not next weekend because he's appearing next Thursday, but not next weekend, but the next weekend, the 2nd October weekend. Mm-hmm. He's got his own event. He's doing a Paracon in an old brewery in just outside Chicago.
Oh, dang!
It's a brewery restaurant, and it's a known haunted location. And he's going to have a Paracon there and a ghost hunt. So if anybody is there, go to Dale's event. In fact, if you don't mind, let me show a 30-second video, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. In his honor. Absolutely.
This is the guy who came on the show that you were too sick to do. I'm not blaming you. Never was upset when you think life happens.
Yeah.
But Dale bailed me out, and this is the little video he showed me for his Paracon coming up.
Hi everyone, I'm Dale Kaczmarek from the Ghost Research Society. Just talking very quickly about our upcoming convention called the Midwest Spirit Fest on October 16th, 2022 at the Thornton Distillery in Thornton, Illinois from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. People are interested in getting tickets, they can go to my website at ghostresearch.org or also find it on Eventbrite or Facebook page. I hope to see all of you there.
That's Dale Kaczmarek.
Excellent.
But his place, if you go to ghostresearchsociety.com and see the details, he's been ghost hunting since the early 70s.
Wow.
And he's got 10,000 more investigations than I'll ever have in my lifetime if I live to be 90.
You got quite a few.
I got quite a few. I've been around for a while.
Yeah.
But Dale's been around since, like I said, doing active investigations, investigating houses for people who have had issues in Chicago since the early 70s. The place he's got now is a nice restaurant. They serve good food. They make their own beer. It's a brewery. Mm-hmm. It is a known haunted location. It's an older location. And now people can go in there and actually ghost hunt with Dale Kaczmarek and be a part of all his experiences. And you just don't go to events like this, like the one you were talking about with the Wraith Chasers. You don't get to go to investigations all the time where you've got a good, experienced investigator that you can learn from. And those are 2 events coming up that people who are in those areas that want to get into paranormal investigations need to go to so they can learn from these highly experienced people.
Absolutely. There's not, I really can't say, but maybe 3 people comes to mind. Seasoned investigators, very important. They can teach you so much just by being there. They can teach you so much.
Yeah.
I know try to learn from all of them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I learned a lot from Richard Crowe. I was before that investigation there with the John Dillinger event, the bar he was starting in, which is right across the street from the Biograph Theater. I got to sit down with him for 2.5 hours. Which,
Right.
yeah, we had a couple of alcoholic drinks. We were having a good time, but to sit there with somebody with the knowledge of Richard Crowe and for 2.5 hours, just one-on-one, me and him,
Amazing.
that's a blessing. There are people around when Richard Crowe was the guy that would have gladly paid a couple $100 an hour to sit there with Richard Crowe for 2 hours. There's
Absolutely.
people that would pay $100 to sit there for 10 minutes
Mhm.
and talk with him one-on-one. And I got to sit there for 2.5 hours.
Lucky you. Wow.
I was really fortunate.
We'll talk about some of the things that you learned sometime. I'm going to close and go to bed because I'm exhausted.
Okay. I
I mean-
appreciate you done the overtime. We got we've almost gone 3 hours. I got 12:51.
I've had an amazing time. This has been absolutely wonderful. I've learned some things, and that's always valuable. And I am so glad that we got to share this time. And we'll have to do it again. You've given me a lot of homework. I wrote down everything to look up, so the next time we meet, I'll be a little bit more educated.
Okay, like I said, look up H.H. Holmes.
I got that.
Yeah, look up the books on him and the research on him. He's a very scary individual.
John Kellinger jail, got John Kellinger jail, Allen House, and then there's three or four more over here that I want to study up a little bit more on purgatory and whatever you want to talk about, I'm game.
Okay, you said John Kellinger. That's a D, Dillinger.
I knew that, Dillinger. I knew that didn't sound right. Oh, that's right. It is a D. I'm blind without my glasses.
Okay, John Dillinger.
John,
there's been movies put out on him. One
I've
just
I've heard
10, 12 years ago. It was Christian Bale was in it.
Oh, okay.
Christian Bale was one of the ones who shot him.
Okay, yeah, I'll look all that up. And absolutely.
Very, very strange man. He ended up committing suicide because he lost all relevancy because of the head of the FBI wanted to put him on the back burner. He quit the FBI because of a cross-dressing FBI head. Thought he was getting too much power, and he quit the FBI and ended up committing suicide by the same gun that he shot Dillinger with.
No way. I didn't know that either. Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to
the things I learned from Richard Crowe.
Oh, I know, man. You were lucky. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm going to get out of here and get some sleep. And we will do this again. Thank you so much again for letting me, for giving me the opportunity to talk about these 3 upcoming events. I really appreciate that very much.
What I'd like to do is get you back on in another month or so when you've gotten everything together after these events and let everybody know what happened, who you talked to. Maybe we can arrange it where, because you can do share screen on this. It's not, I don't have to do it. You can do it. I'm not sure how you do it, but you need to get into StreamYard. And in theory, they say that you can share screen.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that tomorrow, the next day. I don't understand what happened. I've never had a problem with StreamYard. Not ever. I just popped right in. It's never been a problem. So I'm going to find out what went wrong. And yeah, we'll all do that. Maybe we can do a split screen and everybody come in and talk about what happened at their events. I'll try to do pictures on. I always do Frisco pictures. I take tons and tons of pictures and post them. So be looking for Frisco pictures on Facebook.
Okay. Will
All
do.
right.
Will
And
do.
we'll talk again.
Yeah, I had a great time. I could have you every other month as a guest.
I appreciate it.
This is an amazing show. You have great hair. You have a fantastic accent, and I know the head of the network, Ted. He's from New York. This is WLFE is New York based.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine he is. If he's watching this, and he will be posting it too, he's got to stream it.
Awesome.
That he is laughing at our accents.
I cannot change it.
No.
I was raised in the South,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to San Diego, and I spent many, many, many years there. Thought I would lose the accent. I never did. And then moved back to Texas. Texas is the greatest state on earth. And I moved back to Texas, and it just doubled.
Yes.
So
Uh,
it is.
I lived in Chicago for 14 and a half years. And I thought I would lose it and come out of there with maybe just no accent, which is what Chicagoans have. They have a distinctive lack of accent.
Mm-hmm.
But once I moved back down here to Arkansas and been down here for 6.5 years now, and our native Arkansans can pick up that some words are pronounced different in Georgia than Arkansas. And some people who are good can say, you're not from Arkansas. Where you're from? Texas, Alabama, or Georgia.
Same thing with North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina is so rich in accent. So rich in accent. You can pick up somebody from North Carolina right straight on. It's crazy.
Yes, because it's a little bit different from a Georgia accent or your Alabama accent, which is spiked heavily with Texas accent.
Yep. You know what? We got to get, you know what we ought to do sometime is the Devil's Den in Arkansas. We need to do that. We need to do the Devil's Den.
The Devil's Den.
Oh, yeah. 1972. Terry Lovelace and his friend was abducted from there. And this isn't, and I'm sure Terry would love to share his story. He's got a couple of books out on it now.
Right.
But we need to do the story on the Devil's Den and the extraterrestrial visitation.
Well, another thing that Dale wants to come down here and do, because it's hard for him to come down here. Dale is about 5 or 6 years older than I am, which puts him right at 70.
Yeah.
And 70, 71. So he's not spring chicken he was when he started. And of course, if I'm saying if he's doing investigations in the early 70s, I was still in high school, and I'm 66. But he wants to come down here and do Pea Ridge.
Really?
That's a nut. Have you ever been to Pea Ridge Battlefield?
No, not.
You know where it is?
No, I do not.
Do you know where Branson, Missouri is?
I do, absolutely.
It's between Branson's just over the border in Missouri from Arkansas. The battlefield is actually south of Branson, extending into Arkansas a little bit. But of course, the main part of the area is in Missouri, very, very southern Missouri.
We need to do that.
Of course, there is another place that's less than 100 miles from Pea Ridge. Is what is the name of that city? The Crescent Hotel is there.
I don't know.
Oh, you never heard of the Crescent Hotel?
Well, yeah, I've heard of the Crescent Hotel, but I don't know what city.
I'm drawing a blank. It's getting late at night. Anyway, it's about 50, it's within 100 miles east of Pea Ridge of the battlefield. Because the battlefield's up in the northwest corner, very close to Oklahoma and definitely in Missouri, in that area. And you go about, like I said, less than 100 miles east, and you'll run into, it starts with an E. anyway, run to the Crescent Hotel, which of course has its own haunts there. There's another hotel there that's also haunted. So right in that corner, from about halfway across Arkansas up into the northwest corner, is a lot of haunted area. But of course, you're talking about, you're in the hills. You're definitely higher elevation than I am here. We are, if we're lucky, I'm sitting on top of a hill, 125 feet over sea level. I'm in very low elevation here.
Pea Ridge sounds. I knew I'd heard of that before. That sounds really.
It was an interesting battle. The Confederates outnumbered the Union forces almost 2-1. And you'd have thought that they should have just mopped the floor with the U.S. Army. And theoretically, they did. They could have and should have. But the generals leading the Confederate armies were incompetent. And it was incompetent leadership that led to a major Union victory.
I have to do some studying on that before we go there. That would be fun.
That would indeed be fun.
Absolutely. That'd be awesome.
Of course, now the Crescent is an expensive place to stay. They charge a couple $100 per person per night just to stay there. It's like staying in a 5-star hotel with the prices they charge, which are kind of ridiculous. But they do have haunted tours, and maybe we could get a discount if we hit them off season and in the middle of the week.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's why the wife and I got quite a bit of stuff done in New Orleans. We went middle of summer, and nobody goes to New Orleans in the summertime. Only fools go in summertime.
Yeah.
And that's what I investigated the Andrew Jackson Hotel for 2 nights.
Now that would be interesting too. Yeah.
That was interesting. That was no joke interesting. On the second night, the tour said, okay, about 2:00, 3:00, we're gonna call an end to it, and most people went to bed. I'm not one of those people. I locked myself in a room by myself, and I investigated inside the room till about 6:30, and got up and went to the courtyard, still with equipment on, and watched the sunrise.
Oh, I'm a sunrise too. All right. Well, I'm going to get out of here and get some sleep before I collapse.
All right. Good night. I really appreciate it. We will talk. If you got anything you want to say, just hit me on Messenger. Whoop. And I guess her battery died. She cut herself off. We are getting out of here. One more time, I want to hear these places that we talked about tonight. Of course, tonight, I am booking guests for November. So if anybody wants to appear on this show, to advertise their event on this show, October is fully booked. So I'm looking for November bookings, looking for guests. They're individual investigators, looking for teams. If you have an event, hit me up on YouTube or YouTube. Well, that's not the best communications device in the world, but Facebook, and hit me on Messenger, either the Southern Fried Paranormal podcast page or my regular profile, Lynn Dorman. And I'm looking, like I said, to book in November. Tonight, we really appreciated Phoenix Jansen. She will return another time. We had almost three hours of her tonight, but she will be the reboot recovery with the RIP and the Wraith Chasers, Chris and Mike, Celebrity Ghost Hunt, benefiting the reboot recovery / veteran suicide awareness group. They're fundraising for that. So there's our contact information. I will be showing this occasionally on my Facebook group. So go to rebootrecovery.com for more information. There are events coming up October 22nd. The Gypsy Holistic Soul Fair, October 29th and 30th. I will be advertising this again. So you need to take a look at that over in Texas. And another Texas event, of course, the History Haunts and Legends in Jefferson, Texas. And of course, that's November 5th. So I will be talking about these between now and then on the show, advertising them. If anybody else wants to advertise their group or their event, again, Lynn Dorman on Facebook. And you can send me a short video like I showed Dale earlier, and I will show one more time right here.
Hi everyone, I'm Dale Kasmerick from the Ghost Research Society. Just talking very quickly about our upcoming convention called the Midwest Spirit Fest on October 16th, 2022 at the Thornton Distillery in Thornton, Illinois from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. People are interested in getting tickets, they go to my website at ghostresearch.org or also find it on Eventbrite or Facebook page. I hope to see all of you there.
All right, that's Dale's event, and that will be, where am I? Here I am. That will be my guest next week. Dale will be talking much more about his event, as who's going to be there, what he's going to do, hours he's going to do things. So tune into the show next week. Dale Kasmerick will be the guest, and we'll be talking about his Paragon that he just spoke of in the video. All right, Bones, get us out of here. We are leaving town. I may not go to bed, but I can't stay here all night. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching our show. Be sure to tune in to next week as once again we journey way down south into Bayou Country for another heaping portion of Southern Fried Paranormal with Lynn Dorman and Bones. Make sure to like, share, and follow. Y'all come back now. You hear?